Morning, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. My name is Scott
Recording in
Pearson. I'm
progress.
the Mayor Pro Tem of the town of Mountain Village, and I would like to welcome everyone to this joint special meeting between the town of Mountain Village Town Council and the Telluride Town Council. So I'll start by calling this meeting to order for the town of Mountain Village. I'll just say a few words, and then I will turn it over to Mayor Teddy Errico from the town of Telluride so he can call the meeting to order for Village. Telluride. Let's just see who is in attendance. We have Tucker Magid, Rick Gomez, Alina Arguelles, and myself here in person. Do we have any council members online?
Ma'am, Harvey's online.
Okay. Harvey Mogensen.
And I just promoted him. And that's all I have online right now.
Yes, can you hear me as well?
We can hear you, Harvey.
Perfect.
Mayor Martinique Prohaska is in the audience. She has recused herself from all matters relating to the strike and our response to that. And so she's certainly watching and attending. Let me just say a few words. This is the 12th day of the labor stoppage. We wanted to hold this special meeting for several reasons. First of all, to provide clarity on the impact to date of this strike, to discuss mitigation with our partners in Telluride, and finally, to learn directly from the participants in the labor negotiations on the status of those negotiations. We also wanted to provide a public forum for members of our community to make comments. After public safety, this council's most important job is to provide for the public welfare. That welfare is under great threat, and we want input from the community as to how we as a government can best help. I want to acknowledge the pain in our community and also the many acts of kindness, resilience, and fortitude that characterize our towns. Did anybody else from our town have anything to say before I turn it over to Teddy and the Telluride Town Council?
I'm Councilperson Alina Arguelles, and I want to go on record at the start of this meeting that I've reviewed our principles and rules as well as consulted with David McConaughey, who is our Mountain Village Town Attorney. And while there are no formal conflicts, I am in a ski patrol household, and I'd like to maintain transparency and objectivity. So as such, I'll be abstaining from commentary or discussion regarding either Telluride Ski and Golf directly or the Telluride Professional Ski Patrol directly, and I may step away to recuse myself at some point or points during the meeting tonight.
Thanks, Celine. I also want to acknowledge we have a full house here today. We also have several boxes of pizza, so anybody in the audience who is hungry and wants to help themselves, please don't be shy about coming up and taking a slice. Teddy?
Scott, thank you very much. Thank you for running this meeting, and thank you to all of the Mountain Village Town Council members for inviting the town of Telluride to this joint meeting. With that, I would like to call to order the Telluride portion of this Mountain Village Town of Telluride special meeting. And with that call to order, I will do a roll call and starting to my left.
Ashley Von Sparken.
And then I think online, Teddy, we have Kristen and Dan.
All right, great. With Kristen Permacroft and Dan Enright online. With that, we will pass it back to Scott to get started. And also thank you all in the audience for being here.
And
Thank you.
We also have Pete Dupre online.
Oh, welcome, Pete. Let me turn it over to our town manager, Paul Weiser. Paul produced, and along with his team, produced an outstanding and informative memo. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go to the town website and download the packet. I found it very enlightening and sobering. And Paul, let me turn it over to you for an introduction.
Pro Tem Pearson, I appreciate that, and a lot of people did contribute to that. As we're going on tonight, can everyone who is in the discussion remember to speak into their microphones? We already have our first complaint, so let's try and make sure that everyone online can hear us. I'm always intimidated when Telluride joins us because they do that roll call thing, and I'm like, are we going to battle? Like, what's happening? They gave me 5 minutes to start, and I could do jokes the rest of the time to try and lighten the mood because this certainly is a difficult time we're in, but I won't take that much time. I do want to acknowledge that we are in a really difficult time in Telluride's history. We're nearing 2 weeks of the mountain being closed, and there is understandably a lot of fear at the moment. The closure has had an undeniable impact, and I don't think that anyone can say otherwise. Rightly so, tensions are high, people are scared, and I can empathize with that. Those are all really natural and legitimate feelings to have at this moment, especially given how uncertain everything feels right now. But while this feels really unique, it's certainly not the first time that this community has been in this situation. And I think it's important that we remember that. This community that we love so much is the result of a then dying mining town facing far greater economic challenges than we face today. And out of those challenges, they were able to come together, work together, and persevere to create this very community. After that, that resort community has faced plenty of years where the snow has not been great. People didn't come to spend money, but in the days after, together, we were able to enjoy powder days and push tourists off the lift because they were in our way. It does get better. And most recently, this community, many in this community, thought we were not going to make it through COVID when those first days hit. There was a very uncertain future ahead of all of us, but this community thrived more so than just about any other community in the country. And not only did we thrive during the pandemic, we were able to ride that wave for the last 5 years, which has been the greatest 5 years of economic prosperity in this community. So it's important, I think, that we all have a little bit of context for the time that we are in, because we have faced challenges before, and every single time we have come out better on the other side. Now, that's not to say that I truly recognize that people feel powerless right now, and that is also very understandable. But no amount of finger pointing or shouting or getting on our keyboards and pounding out the best rant we possibly can is going to solve the TSG labor dispute. We have to come to terms starting right now that no one in this room has control over the outcome of that negotiation. That said, we can acknowledge that we do control certain things. We can acknowledge the problem in front of us, and we can begin to work that problem and find solutions so we can get to the other side in a better place than where we started. You know, I hope that we spend tonight remembering that we're all friends and neighbors, and no matter how you feel about the TSG dispute, the things that we care about are that the person to our left and the person to our right are going to be okay tomorrow, and that this region and that this resort and this brand that we all care so much about is going to be better for this experience. And if we all work together as a community, we can do that. So let's start right now. Let's start working the solutions. I'm going to introduce Patrick, Molly, Zoe, and JD to kick us off to talk about some of the highlights of some of the great things we've already done.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, councilpersons, for the opportunity tonight. JD is joining us online, so I'll take the lead on this topic, and really I'm just going to hand it over to Patrick because he was the captain of our ship. He got us all up and running and listed and entrusted with credit cards and information and let me go spend money to help kids have a lot of fun over the holidays. So with that, I'll hand it over to Patrick. And without him, we might have been aimlessly. So thank you, Patrick, for the help and the leadership.
Patrick, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick Latcham with TMVOA. And Molly, thanks for the intro. And I'll do a quick update on the holiday programming we just pulled off over the last couple of weeks. To kick it off, I'm just going to talk about the timeline because I think it's one of the most impressive components of this. On Wednesday, December 17th, we had 3 new board members elected. On Thursday, December 18th, I met with Paul Weiser, JD, and Molly. And we got together and we were just thinking, we need to do something. I mean, at that point, we were worried about the lack of snow, potential strike. And we did acknowledge, that the ski resort might not even be able to operate. And so we wanted to put something together quickly to help out all of our guests that were going to be in-house and support all of our businesses as well. And then as a result of that conversation, the next day, TMVOA called a special board meeting and we approved moving funds from general contingency over to a holiday programming fund. And then that Monday, we had a site walk that kicked off all of this. So it just happened extraordinarily fast. And that site walk was a focus on a light mapping, which you'll see over here on the right. Light mapping usually has around a 9-month lead time. We did it in about 3 days. And it was such an amazing collaborative effort. There was more to it than I realized when we said we would do it, that's for sure. For example, we had to get a 250-pound projector up on a 6-foot tall structure. So that weekend, I called over to White's Construction, and I said, can you guys make this for us? And they said, absolutely. They were on site at 7 a.m. that day. By 9 a.m., we had a 6-foot tall structure that could hold a 250-pound projector enclosure. And then 2 days after that, we had an ice sculpture in place as well. So all this moved extraordinarily fast, and that was just because people came together from White's Construction to Cam Electric, Town of Mountain Village. We all banded together and put this together. And so that was what we did over in Heritage Plaza. And then the goal here was to do little activations throughout each of the plazas so people could roam around and there was something going on. While the light mapping was probably the biggest lift, I would say alpaca were the biggest hit. Saw just so many pictures of that and just so many smiling faces. It jokingly became the Mountain Village therapy animals. And people just absolutely loved it. And it was just a little activation we did over in Sunset Plaza. And then in Reflection Plaza, we added a DJ skate party. They, did 2 shows a night. And it just provided this atmosphere where you just peruse through each plaza and each one had something going on. I've never seen so many people ice skate in my life. And with no skiing, it's certainly, it was something to do. And then over in the conference center, and big kudos to JD and Molly, they really ran with this. We made a kids camp during the day and a movie series at night. So we had inflatables, we had bounce houses, just all these different things for kids to do, a Western photo booth. It's my family on the far right there. And it was, what was surprising to me on this one was the amount of locals that partook in this. It's not having daycare during the holidays is tough. And, it was great seeing so many locals in there. And I think we learned from so many of these things. When we got a lot of people in town, giving them something to do is really important, and not just our tourists, but the locals too. So it all came together to have this programming in just a couple of days and resulted in 77 programs over 10 days. And then on December 30th, we extended it to January 4th as well. And, admittedly, no programming is going to offset the drop in occupancies that we saw. No programming is going to, make up for not skiing on your ski holiday. But it resulted in a festive atmosphere. It put smiles on people's faces. It gave them something to do. It gave them reasons to stay in Mountain Village and spend more time up here. And so it all came together. And I look at it as a microcosm. It's an example and a reminder of what happens when we all come together and work together. And it's something that we just got to keep that spirit alive. There's a lot of people in this town that care deeply about this community. We're resilient, we're resourceful, and we're going to keep working together to help us get on the other side of this. And with that, I want to just give a thank you to everyone who helped out, and a special shout out to Brett Button, JD, Molly, Paul, Catherine, White's Construction, Cam Electric, all the vendors. Wouldn't have been possible without them. And thank you.
We also have Zoe, if you want to speak to.
Well, I'll just also give kudos to all of you up here, and 77 programs over that course of time is very impressive. So well done. We had our council meeting yesterday, so our council is aware of what we were able to accomplish, but just to really show what we were able to come together as a community and provide for the visitors and our locals that were here. We leaned on our Parks and Rec department, and a huge thank you to them for stepping up. We were able to do 2 themed skates at our Hanley rink, offering a hot cocoa bar thanks to Coffee Cowboy, and we waived the skate fee. And we saw hundreds and hundreds of people. At one point I went and there was about 300 people on our rink. It was similar to what Patrick just said. It was very full. And I know that everyone enjoyed the theme. So we had a pajama skate and we did a glow skate. And we're looking into the next week, and we'll continue on to provide theme skates. I think we're thinking of doing a superhero theme. So really appreciative to our team doing that. We also asked our businesses with free parking on Friday and Saturday to extend their hours. So we did extended shopping hours and free parking to help with that. And we'll continue to look at free parking over the weekend time to encourage that traffic. And then we had open gym available as well. And we really saw a lot of people enjoying our community outside of that, of course, with our sledding hills and everything else that we have going on. But it was a difficult time, and I just appreciate everyone coming together to offer a lot of great things for our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else, Molly? We're a couple minutes late, but if any members of either council has any questions, comments on this?
I'd like to add some comments. You know, our town manager used a couple words that stick with me. Uncertainty and powerless are the 2 that resonate with me, because are 2 that I am feeling myself personally, and I think that we're all feeling those. On the positive note, the one that resonated with me is solutions. And I think that our town staff came together, reacted very quickly, and I wanted to take a couple seconds really to thank you. And that's everybody, from the town manager across the board to our assistant town manager to JD and Molly, and coming together with TMVOA and putting together the events for the few guests that are still here in Telluride, fueling our economy. I think it was important for me to speak to that as a council person. As a lodger, you know, I'd also like to thank you on behalf of the lodging community, because that has been incredibly difficult. I mean, we mentioned COVID as well, and we had to revisit as a lodging community kind of our COVID protocols and how we were handle advanced deposits for a lot of the guests that had booked for this season. And I handled and fielded a lot of questions relative to that. And what I also responded is, you can't forget that we're also in the business of hospitality. And so therefore, we do have cancellation policies, but because we're in the business of hospitality and we want to retain our guests' loyalty for them to return to Telluride, there's been tremendous loss of business. And the projection that Patrick Latcham was showing on the screen earlier was actually on the Madeline building. The general manager, Alan Highfield, couldn't be here today, but on behalf of a bird collection and them, he wanted to make sure that he sent his thanks as well for the efforts that were put in making sure that our guests were really taken care of. So thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Anybody else? All right, well, let me invite Kira Skinner up to provide a update from the Telluride Tourism Board.
Right. Good evening, council members. Thank you for having this special meeting. I'm Kira Skinner, Executive Director for the Telluride Tourism Board. And tonight I'll be sharing some metrics with you that show how this labor dispute has impacted visitation. And we'll share those metrics through bookings as well as occupancy in Telluride and Mountain Village. Cancellations are another KPI that can be used, but they really don't give us an accurate picture of the situation, and that's due to cancellation policies. A lot of the lodgers, because of the timing of this, could not cancel reservations. They had to keep the existing reservations or move reservations to future dates. So therefore, these bookings and occupancy are really the best KPIs we can use now. So first we'll look at November bookings, and these are year-over-year comparisons for the destination. And we see that we were looking strong, for the season in regards to booking for November, pacing 3.6% ahead of last season. We did have a bit of a drop toward the end of the month, which may be due to the resort's delayed opening. Now, December's a different picture, as you can see. So we start the month off 25% behind, likely due to the delayed opening of the ski resort. And then we drop 14 points in the middle of the month. There are a lot of variables that could have impacted this decline: lack of snow, limited terrain, as well as the labor dispute and the ongoing conversations about a possible strike being amplified. So we see toward the end of the month a significant drop, and that is when the announcement of a strike and subsequent closure of the resort was announced. The week of December 22nd, we were down 54% in bookings year over year, and last week bookings were down 59%. So the total decrease in bookings for the month of December was a 42% decrease. Now we will compare to some of our competitive destinations in Colorado and Utah who are also experiencing low snowfall this season. So we look at November and we see that they were actually pacing behind us. We were 3.6% ahead, and our competitive resorts were behind 7.5% for bookings in November. Then in December, we see that they started out the month strong. This could be related to some of these resorts opening, actually most of them, opening on time. So I think that has had a positive impact on the bookings. And then we see a slight decline in the middle of the month, and then a more rapid decline toward the end of the month, suggesting that this could be snow related. However, we see that the impacts are really lot less significant than the impacts that we saw. So December 22nd at our competitive resorts down 22%, and last week was down 20%. And we compare that to our declines of 56% and 59% at the end of December. So in total, our competitive resorts were down 6.5% for December, and we were down almost 42%. Now we'll take a look at our lodging metrics. So as of December 1st, 2025, we were on pace with last season. Total occupancy was up 1%. Paid occupancy was down 1% for the destination, and ADR was flat, resulting in a 1% decline in revenue per available room. Now we compare that to the competitive destinations, and we see that we were aligned with them. So they were 2% ahead in total occupancy and flat in paid occupancy. RevPAR was ahead by 1%. Now let's take a look at today. So today, total occupancy for the destination is down 10%. Paid occupancy is up 15%. ADR is ahead 1%, resulting in a 14% decrease in revenue per available room. When we look at our comp set, we see that they have declined slightly, but not as significantly as we have. So total occupancy in our comp resorts down 2%, paid occupancy is down 5%, RevPAR is down 4%. So we have a 10-point decline. And if we look at it, I think we can come to the conclusion that if we weren't going through this labor dispute, our metrics would look more like the comp resorts right now.
And Kiera, just to be clear, when this talks about the winter pace, it's looking at bookings for the whole season.
Yes,
not
exactly.
just up to now.
Right.
So it's we're down, but it's also reflecting the resilience so far of March, for example.
Exactly. So, and I'll show the monthlies, but it is illustrating both actuals from December as well as the forecasted pace.
Thanks.
And if I could jump in, Karen, one quick question.
Yes.
I didn't want to hear you're on a roll. I don't want to say before. Just to clarify the term booking. On your chart, you have bookings on certain dates. Just to clarify, is that reservations for those dates, or is that when visitors make the reservation? I'm just unclear.
Yeah, great question. It is when visitors are booking reservations. It is not actual reservations. It's reservations being booked. So during that time frame. Does that answer your question?
So in other words, Harvey, the phones aren't ringing.
No, but that's very helpful. When someone's making a reservation, we don't know when it's for. It could be for February, but you're just talking about it's an indication of people trying to make a reservation. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All right, and now we'll look at our monthlies. So as of December 1st, 2025, we were looking slightly behind in pace for December and for January, down 3% and 1% respectively. And then February, we were slightly ahead, 4% ahead, and March pacing 1% ahead. April looks significantly ahead, but that's really just because the Easter and Semana Santa holidays are falling within the ski season this year. So the numbers are still very small. And as of today, we're seeing that December closed 12% behind last year. January is currently pacing 18% behind. We've lost 3 points in January over the past 2 days. February is pacing 8% behind year over year, and March is currently down 6%. So over the last 2 days, we've also lost 4 points in February and 3 points in March, indicating that time is of the essence. The next 2 weeks are critical in the booking windows for the rest of the ski season. So with that, we urge the two parties to come to a resolution this week to save the remaining months of winter and the livelihood of our businesses, economy, and community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the town of Telluride? I had just one, which is that, in Paul's memo, he talks about the need, once this strike is settled, to launch a major campaign to try to tell the world that we're back. Do you have any sense of what the magnitude of that campaign would be and what you would be looking to the two towns to contribute to that?
Thank you for asking that question, because we've been brainstorming that in hopes that, they will come to a resolution soon and we can really ramp up marketing efforts. So I think that's a discussion we'll all have together, sit down at the table and talk about extra funding to really push on the gas for those marketing efforts. So we are still currently marketing because we don't want to turn it off. We know the negative impacts that can have on a destination, but we really would like to amplify them further. And then we also need to look at just brand recovery over the next year as well and take that into account. So
you're saying we need to have that conversation, but not tonight.
I'd be open to having that conversation tonight if the rest of the group would be. Absolutely.
You want to share your early thoughts?
Well, I'd have to look at our comprehensive budget. Maybe it's something we follow up on, because I think that we need to get together with our partners and really look at the rest of the season, what has been spent, what we have left to spend, and really develop an effective plan. So I think to have a constructive conversation, we should probably wait, at least, a few days. And then we can come up with a plan and have that ready for you all.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
It will also be interesting for us to review, because as a result of reduced lodging revenues, obviously there's a tremendous impact to top line revenues for the town. And as we review adjustments to our budget relative to the contributions to TTB, what will also be important is for us not to cut that line, right? So that line is already an expense line item on both of our town budgets. And so we will have to exercise number one, not cut that. Exercise number two, figure out where we can cut within our budget line items so that we can supplement now and continue to add to TTB.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
And Kira, I think the other question that sorry. Was I going?
Let's let Mian go and then whomever online.
Okay. Yesterday in the meeting, one of the things that was discussed, and we've heard back from a number of businesses, that they're interested in doing some more regional pushes and reinvigorating similar campaigns that we've had in the past. And I think since we've got a room full of businesses, I think maybe if you could explain a little bit more about that program and how we would implement something similar.
Absolutely. And I actually have a slide for that for that point. So yes, based on feedback from yesterday's meetings, we did decide, and we were having discussions on this earlier as well, to relaunch our Shop, Play, Dine Local campaign. So there's a couple different components to that. We have a locally targeted campaign that will run, and actually we included a blurb today in the peak sheet about it, requesting that businesses send in any specials. And we're not necessarily looking for discounts. We understand that these are hard times right now, but any kind of special offer that would encourage people to come into your business would be great. So please fill out that form, and we'll include you on a landing page on our website that will list all business specials, and we will market that locally. The other component of that is a potential staycation experience that we would promote regionally and include our lodging partners. So regardless, our lodging partners will be included with specials on a national level. And then we will also look at that through a regional level as well. And we would push that out through paid social regionally.
Great.
Thank you for asking.
There was a question online.
Yes.
Yeah, it's from Pete. Kira, I'm a little confused on your slides, because when I read Paul's memo, it seemed like bookings were trailing off dramatically, and your slides don't tend to show that. I just wonder, so if you were looking at February, if we had 1,000 rooms that we could rent out, it's I don't know, it just seems like it's going to be worse than you're showing here.
Well, I think so, and that's a great question, Pete. So what's happening is that, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the lodging properties, rather than canceling, they're pushing reservations to future dates. So I think we're seeing that in February and March. Whereas if those reservations weren't pushed to those months, it would probably look a little more grim. So that's why I mentioned that this timing is critical, because it's possible that people could cancel their reservations in February and March if something doesn't change.
So like if you were looking at February for 2026, do you know how much of our capacity has been booked?
Well, so for key data, 47%, we're 47% occupancy right now for February. So that is representative of about 80% of our managed properties in the destination. So it gives us a good snapshot. It's not exact, but it's more directional.
So the question is, how much of that 52% of additional capacity you think is going to be booked for February? I would think it's a very low number.
Yeah, it's hard to predict right now based on the situation, but something that we'll be able to share in terms of actuals later.
But based on your experience, is it safe to assume that we could be running at a 50% capacity?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Is it, based on your experience, do you think it's fair to say that February could be running at a 50% occupancy?
Possibly, but again, it just depends on the situation. We could be lower if we don't come to a resolution. I think that right now we're looking rather stable considering the circumstances, but again, that it's critical in terms of those bookings. Yes, I think if we can turn this around, we may be able to increase that occupancy because we're over a month out. So again, something that we won't know until we're there or in a couple of weeks. And I'm happy to circle back with you on that, Pete.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ashley.
I will speak into a microphone.
You.
Thanks. I have a question about, I think that obviously, as we know, a lot of lodgers have cancellation policies, and those are, pretty stringent, I would say. Do we have any sort of data on how many people had lodging booked that maybe they couldn't get refunds on, but then ultimately still decided not to take their trip and forego deposits or forego lodging costs?
Yes, I have talked to a few different lodging property management companies that had, their cancellation policy in place. They couldn't refund and people went elsewhere. So we also may be seeing, we may also be seeing that shift with our comp data where some of those reservations may have moved over to our comp resorts.
Yeah, I know that happened frequently where people pushed their Januaries into February and March in hopes that there would be better, conditions or, no strike and stuff like that. I'm just curious because sometimes, obviously, we're utilizing this occupancy as a projection of what we can expect, but I'm just curious, like, what kind of, margin of error there might be in saying, like, well, 10% of those people just might not even show up. So even if we're looking at 50% occupancy, you might actually be looking more like 40% because people will just choose not to come. They'll take that expense. They'll still choose to go elsewhere and spend their money in different places for food and drinking and shopping and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that is revenue lost for our businesses, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
And if I can piggyback on that, I think we're very used to looking at owner and paid occupancy together, but paid occupancy is going to have a bigger impact to our business communities than owner occupancies. So as we go forward, it would be nice to parse those two things out to help us get a little more granular on the data. And then also, just for those who may not have been in previous meetings, if you could speak, just briefly, you said that you're still running marketing, but if you could just speak to what's being run and where, please.
Sure. So our national marketing campaign is running in all of our key air markets. It's a mix of digital and print, and it is very targeted, both to our demographic cohorts as well as geographically. So we're running direct, but we're also running programmatic through video, online banners, paid social, through a number of different channels. So that is still running. We have pulled back on our national paid social at the moment, just due to the engagement that we were getting on that. We just decided that wasn't the best strategy at this point, but we will turn that back on when the timing is right. And yeah, it was really important for us to stay present in our markets.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
A couple comments to the audience. First of all, we have a full house. Thank you very much for coming. A couple people had raised their hands. We will have a public comment section later. If you are in the audience and you have something that you feel is, you have unique information that you feel needs to be contributed right now, come up and mention it to Paul. And if Paul thinks it's worth sharing during the non-public comment section, we'll get you in. Also, if you haven't signed in on the sign-in sheet, please do so as you know when you leave, so we have a good record of everybody who's here. Thanks.
Great.
All right. Anything else for Kira before we move on? Thank you so much for being here and everything you do.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we have Jason Corzine, who is the Executive Director of the Telluride Foundation. And he's going to give us an update on the Good Neighbor Program and other Telluride Foundation efforts. Paul?
Yeah, so real quickly, this particular situation we find ourselves in affects individuals as well as businesses. And so as we begin to think about solutions, we don't think that there is a overarching solution that is going to work in terms of administration that will serve appropriately individuals and businesses. And so Jason and the Telluride Foundation are going to talk about the Good Neighbor Program, and then we will talk further about a business support program that we're developing.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening, councils. Great to see you together for this occasion. Jason Corzine, President, CEO of Telluride Foundation. Just a quick update on the Good Neighbor Fund, which is housed at the foundation and, as a reminder, run by Tri-County Health. They do the administrative work. The foundation holds the fund, and we are the primary fundraiser for that fund. Started in 2015, the Good Neighbor Fund is truly a safety net fund for the most vulnerable in our population due to economic crisis, both personally or others forced upon them throughout a condition like we're experiencing now. The Good Neighbor Fund at its peak hit about $1 million, and that was during COVID. And you can see we tool it up and tool it down based on the needs in the community. But it is really meant to be safety net support for those who are really in critical need, and is oftentimes the difference between being able to stay in the community and having to leave. During COVID, it was retooled as the COVID Response Fund. And again, it was largely driven by philanthropic donations. And that is the case now. As of a week ago, that fund had about $40,000 in it. And it ebbs and flows throughout the year based on need. The foundation board met last week and decided that, this was the time again to start to plus up the Good Neighbor Fund. And happy to report, almost a week later, we're sitting at about $450,000. So that is largely driven by the philanthropic community. They are the philanthropic glue for the Good Neighbor Fund. And this is quite literally neighbor taking care of neighbor in a moment of crisis. And that fund is really to help you pay your most crucial bills, rent, medical bills, anything related to a crisis. That is the difference between you having to leave the community and being able to stay in the community and weather an economic storm. The rules of the Good Neighbor Fund are being changed to be a bit more adaptable to the moment in time. In other words, we changed the residency requirement most recently from a year to backdating it to the most recent hire date for Telski, which was December 15th. So if you were in the community and had a job at December 15th of this year or last year, you're eligible for that fund. The year residency requirement has been waived. The amount has been bumped from $1,500 to $2,500. And we are still looking at, depending on how long, if the strike goes on, that we can change the application requirements from once a year to twice a year. It's a very flexible and nimble fund and is literally to the safety net support that we think our community needs at this time. The bright side of this is when we put a call to action into the philanthropic community, they step up. Part-time residents, full-time residents, everybody's contributing to this. And this is a moment of recognition that when community needs to come together to support community, it actually happens. And that's a great example. Paul's words were perfect. This is a crisis. We've seen it before, and we always weather the storm because we have each other's back. Tonight, we have each other's back. I also want to recognize that we've talked to the town of Telluride, town of Mountain Village, Patrick, TMVOA, to talk about how they can also partner in this fund. If the strike ends tonight, that's great. If it ends tomorrow, that's great. If it goes on another month, that's not great. But the Good Neighbor Fund is going to be needed to be seated at its full capacity. The phone is literally ringing off the hook as of today. We have changed the application process to make it a bit more streamlined and friendly to the user. It is a rigorous process. All applications are vetted. You have to truly show the need. Obviously, we have that in the community. And so we have retooled at a moment in time, again, to be nimble and get this money out as quickly as possible. We look forward to your participation in some form or fashion, yet to be determined. I'll also note that Ski Patrol, as everybody is aware, has talked about putting their GoFundMe funds into the Good Neighbor Fund. And as a reminder, this is community-wide. We cannot specify a class of person. If you apply and you show the need, you are funded. And so it's not for a specific group of people. It's for everybody who is experiencing this. Happy to answer any questions. As Paul mentioned, we'll talk about business relief in a minute, but the Good Neighbor Fund is plussed up and we're looking for more partnership in it right now.
Thank you. Mian?
Can you just speak a little bit more to the Unidos Fund as
well? Yeah, thank you, Mian. The Unidos Fund is also a fund at the foundation, and I would call it a sidecar to the Good Neighbor Fund, but it serves specifically the immigrant population. And so a lot of folks can apply to both funds, but the Unidos Fund is really set aside, and it is never sitting at the balances of the Good Neighbor Fund. It is always lacking and always needs more funds. What we have decided is if an individual is pushed into the Unidos Fund, we will sweep money into there to take care of those individuals as well. So the Good Neighbor Fund, picture it as a large housed fund at the foundation, and then we can disperse funds into Unidos as needed.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder.
I have a question. Can the funds also be used for childcare if people are running up childcare bills right now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And Jason, what's the typical time from application to award?
Well, it can be pretty nimble, Tucker, and it really is based on the application. So there is a lot of let me rephrase that. There is some paperwork that has to go with this. Oftentimes, it takes a couple of runs at it to get it all dialed in. As soon as you are approved, we are cutting checks the same day. So again, pretty streamlined process. Tri-County Health, our partners in this, are fantastic. We have added staff in this moment in time to take on more applications. So the reality is, the turnaround can be in a day.
That's great.
And that's if the application is up to speed and all the paperwork's in. Miracle.
So it is my hope that maybe somebody in this room or somebody listening says, I want to contribute to this fund. What is the easiest way for somebody to contribute?
Yeah, Telluride Foundation website, really easy to find online, and the donate button for the Good Neighbor Fund is sitting on our landing page. You can't miss it. Hit that button. It takes you to the Tri-County. It takes you to our donation page. And if you are needing to fill out an application, it also sends you there as well, which is Tri-County Health. So all of that information is on the foundation's website.
And I think it's just important just to tag off of what Michelle said, how vast the opportunities are within this fund. It's not just rent relief or childcare relief. It's mortgage, utilities.
Correct.
You name
groceries.
it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Medical bills. Mm-hmm. And a thing to remember is we're not writing checks to individuals we are paying the provider that, you know, is owed the money, whether it's rent or a medical bill, et cetera. So it's not an individual coming to the office to get a check. The check is going to the individual or company we are paying on behalf of.
And the Tri-County Health Network team, who are awesome, are
Yes.
available to assist people in English and Spanish.
Absolutely.
And guide them through
Yep.
the application process. And also you have the various behavioral health solutions that they can assist with, as well as any other social needs. So this is one really amazing program, but you also have others in your team at Tri-County. Their help.
Yeah, Tri-County Health has many more resources beyond just the Good Neighbor Fund, the Unidos Fund. You know, it really is a full service wraparound organization that is helping you with your health insurance, with qualifying for health insurance, getting behavioral health needs. I mean, it is an incredible organization and does incredible work in this community, and we are delighted to have them as part of the foundation.
If I may add something, and I'm going to add it in Spanish.
Please.
Para la comunidad hispana que está escuchando en este momento, hay asistencia para ustedes. El dinero que se está hablando está manejado por CAFI. So the funds that we're talking about for Unidos are managed by an organization called Collaborative Action for Immigrants, CAFI. And por favor, si necesitan ayuda, contáctenos a CAFI y nosotros les revisaremos su papeleo para el Unidos Fund, y a través de eso, como acaban de decir, hay dinero disponible. Si no pueden pagar su renta, si tienen problemas médicos, por favor contáctenos a la organización de CAFI. Gracias.
Maria?
My question about the application is just answered. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any council members online? Questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. Jason, how much money do you think you're going to need?
Really good question. I'll take it all. There's not enough. So I think the reality is, you know, we had come into 2026 eyes wide open. Again, not even thinking about an economic situation that we're in right now, but realizing a lot of federal state funds are being cut from our community in general. So our thought was to really lean into the Good Neighbor Fund, and this was, well, it was a very convenient time to do that, to jump in and start to raise the money. I would say if we had this fund sitting again at another $1 million threshold, that is going to be a pretty powerful way to support the community and our community members. We're halfway there. Again, let's remove the optics of the strike and the current situation. People are going to be tapping this fund throughout the year. So it's not just a one-time issue we're trying to solve for. We're solving for a larger crisis, funding crisis that affects our community that we have no control over. And the Good Neighbor Fund is nimble enough to do just that. Healthcare, other issues related to the federal workforce and the state workforce coming down our way are real, and they're going to land this year, and we have to be ready for it.
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, I've navigated through a lot of economic downturns in my career, and my experience is it gets exponential as time goes on. I think most managers are slow in laying off people, but I think we're getting to that point where it's going to accelerate. And if you just look at our demographics, we got roughly 1,200, mostly rental, deed-restricted units. You assume a third of those are going to need assistance, and it's $2,500 is $1 million right there. So I think if I were you, I'd be aiming a little higher.
Well, thank you for the challenge. Let's go higher. So tonight we'll go for $1 million. I mean, I really think we need to be pushing $1 million. And as this goes on, I think amongst our colleagues here, we have talked about we need to be ready to continue to fund into this. There is going to be a bit of a lag time in this, so applications are starting to come in now. I think as the Good Neighbor Fund word gets out, they're going to start coming in pretty hot and heavy. So I think over the next month through January, we're going to see a lot of applications depending on the situation. They could tail off, but the reality is they're never going to stop. And if the strike continues, we're going to have to continue to plus this up throughout the year. It's never going to solve all of the most crucial safety net crisis, but imagine what would happen if we didn't have this.
And Jason and Paul, maybe will add to this too. I just want to reiterate that the towns have committed for that rent relief portion that you particularly talked to, that we will be taking on that burden. So the foundation in Tri-County will be still the administrative arm, but any of the town rental assistance will then be businesses in the town, and we will be utilizing our affordable housing fund to make that difference so it doesn't come out of the Good Neighbor Fund.
Right. So to Zoe's point, if rent relief comes in and it applies to town of Mountain Village or town of Telluride deed restricted home, we will figure out a way to pay that or work with them to pay that so that we're not draining the fund for a town-owned residence.
And I guess from the town of Mountain Village perspective, we will be voting later tonight on that rent relief aspect, as well as on a contribution to the Good Neighbor Fund.
Great.
We've had conversations with TMVOA as well. So I don't want to presume anything because their own board has to act, but
right.
I think whatever the town of Mountain Village would do, we would also look for a contribution from TMVOA, and then so hopefully that will move you a little bit more toward your goal.
Yeah, thank you. Again, what an honor to be able to see all of us work together. This is true partnership.
Before you leave, I know Dan Enright has his hand raised.
Apologies. I had the wrong setting on that. I see it seems to be working now. My question is around the trade-off calculation in the foundation or Tri-County Health Mine between the complexity of the application, preventing fraud by making it more complex versus making it less complex and opening it up to a broader scope. As you have acknowledged, it sometimes takes multiple tries to get through this application. I would really encourage to, in this moment of great need, perhaps looking at it even more slightly, opening that up or reducing the amount of paperwork and administrative burden, administrative hurdle that I know from firsthand experience will be a prohibitive roadblock for at least some percentage of the population during this time. And I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So we are attempting to address that, and I believe, don't hold me to this, but the new application should be live today. And Councilman Enright, the purpose of revising that application was to really streamline the process, make it easier and more expedited to apply. I mean, we have to have some rigor behind this for the reasons you have noted. We don't want the money to be taken advantage of. We have, as fundraisers and stewards of that money, a sincere obligation to our donors and funders to make sure it's accounted for right. So it has to have some rigor, but to be honest, our concern is getting the money out as quickly as possible to our community members. I believe the changes we made to the application as of Friday night will address your concerns, and those who are applying will see a much different application and streamlined application right now. Zoe, is
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Ashley?
I've got a quick question too. In that same vein, I'm wondering, because obviously you mentioned that you were increasing the maximum, allowable grant from 1,500 up to 2,500. And those obviously people are showing hardship, and that money is paid directly to the bill that they have versus to the individual. I'm wondering though, if maybe there is, and at this moment in time, I don't know, some credence in saying maybe it's a smaller, couple $100s could be given to individuals just for general hardship, as far to cover things like groceries and gas and stuff like that, where I'm just trying to think of a lot of people will prioritize their rent. But in doing that, then they might have other bills that wouldn't fall under your categorization of showing, okay, because I don't know how you would do that. If I needed to pay $300 to buy groceries, but I spent all of my money on my rent, so I wasn't, worried about my housing, it seems difficult for me to then get any sort of money from this fund. So it sounds like you guys are working through all of this, but I would say maybe look into doing smaller loans that, again, what Dan is saying, obviously that is, you might be opening yourself up to people that are, maybe not using it for the purposes that they're intending, but in smaller doses that might be palatable and actually get people, money that really need it in smaller amounts that could, make their lives easier while we're going through this.
I understand. I know we're at time, but I will address it. The bump up to 2,500 tracks with a typical rent payment for a deed restricted house in our community, plus or minus. So don't, it's not a hard number. Our feeling is that if you are in true need and you apply to get that money, it is as easy to pay the rent payment for you to free up other income within your budget so that you can take care of those minor issues, food, etc., utilities. And so the most streamlined way to think about this, and of course, it all has to be proven, and in an application, you have to show the need, is that if we can pay your rent, then it's going to free up other revenue for you to address your grocery bills, your utility bills, and anything else that's mounting on you in this time of crisis.
Yeah, I get concerned about, people not fully understanding that, and like that there's nuance to the program, especially when we're saying apply the Good Neighbor Fund, apply the Good Neighbor Fund. But really what we should be saying is don't pay your rent, because the Good Neighbor Fund can help you with that. Cover your other expenses and then apply to the Good Neighbor Fund. I just want us to make sure that like we're getting people the information they need, because I am nervous, like I said, that people will take that payment first, which is what most people do, going, I don't want to lose my housing. And then they are looking at the rest of their expenses going, well, how does it apply then to get the money that I need? So just I want to put that out there to people, like we kind of have to train and be really clear about what this fund can do, versus like you're not just going to be able to show, hey, last week I made $2,000 and this week I made $400, and that's not good. You actually have to show the thing that you can't pay for, and that is going to get paid to the individual, not directly to the person that's making the application.
But it's also a good point to consider, though, because all this is happening at the tail end of a shoulder season, where folks are coming back actually after having spent all their money. And often everyone's broke, right? Hoping that we're coming back to make money in the winter season. And now, so it is a good point, Ashley, that I would second for the foundation to consider for a small amount, because someone may actually not have any money at all at this moment. And sure, we can bridge the gap so that they don't lose their housing, but now they don't have money for gas and they don't have money for food. So they have a place to live, but they can't sustain. And so it's a very, very good point for a small.
Thank you. Jason, thanks for your time.
Keep it.
I think the point. What? No, we're 15 minutes late, so I want to make sure we respect everyone in the audience who's here. That was really informative and helpful, and we're looking forward to contributing, Jason. All right. Let's see. JD Wise, Molly Norton, update on the business community outlook.
Yeah, so we'll be quick because I know we are running behind, but the picture that Kira painted with the graphs and the data is all really important. But I do think as councils are debating here tonight, it is important to have a view of what the actual people in this community are experiencing right now. And so I'll turn that over to Molly and JD in the sky, I believe.
Yes, JD.
I'm here, yes. Thank you. And I apologize, I'm not able to be in the room tonight. So Molly's going to help me drive this presentation and jump in as well. But we will dive right into it. As Paul stated, we really felt it was important to provide an update directly from the business community to the impacts that they are feeling through our ongoing situation. So to that end, we scheduled a special business development advisory group meeting yesterday afternoon at about 1 o'clock. And really the purpose of that meeting was to understand those true on-the-ground economic impacts that our business community is feeling. We had roughly 100 attendees, and I'll be honest, it was a sobering conversation, but it was also heartening to see so many people show up to participate in this discussion, given the fact that we were calling this meeting on roughly 24 hours notice. I'll also note that really feedback was generally consistent across several of our business sectors. And I know that a lot of similar concerns, while this meeting was focused on our Mountain Village businesses, I know that a lot of similar sentiments were shared at Telluride's Town Council meeting yesterday. But businesses are seeing severe revenue loss, immediate operational distress, and growing concern about business survivability if conditions do not improve very quickly. We did gather some data points via Mentimeter. Mentimeter is essentially a real-time survey platform. So we use that platform as a way to generate a few data points throughout our discussion, and also just bring as many voices into the conversation as we could in a limited amount of time. And I'll be brief on some of these points because a few have certainly been highlighted already in this meeting, but revenue declines are real, and businesses are reporting dramatic declines in revenue beginning in late December. 62% of businesses that responded reported year-over-year December revenue declines of over 20%, with many businesses reporting declines closer to the 40 to 80% range. And lodging providers, of course, are describing widespread cancellations and booking hesitancy. It's really worth emphasizing that these impacts that our businesses are facing are not theoretical or long-term, but they're immediate and acute. And the potential of them becoming severely worse if a resolution is not reached soon is very real. Every day that this labor dispute continues, these impacts our businesses are facing are compounded exponentially. And many businesses are already responding operationally in reporting reducing staffing levels, reducing services, reducing days and hours of operations, and salary cuts to salaried employees. And a majority of businesses that are not already implementing staffing cuts anticipate that they will need to do so in the near future. And so just to emphasize that point, of businesses that responded, almost 85% have either already made staffing reductions or anticipate doing so in the very near future. I'll be brief on this slide. Just, Kira has highlighted this already, but I think that really the recurring theme to highlight again is that the next 2 weeks is really the critical window for preserving the remainder of the winter season. And of course, that the uncertainty is eroding consumer confidence and damaging the Telluride and Mountain Village brand. I think it's also worth highlighting that beyond the economic impact, that there is a great emotional impact and community impact to this situation, with business owners really sharing the significant human impacts and emotional strain that they are experiencing. Several businesses expressed extreme frustration and described essentially feeling held hostage by the labor dispute with a limited ability to influence outcomes while bearing the economic consequences. And in addition to, the needed support from a financial standpoint, businesses really iterated, desire to voice their concerns to relevant parties and ensure that the collective business voice is being heard. And they requested regular, transparent communication regarding the status of the labor dispute. We also posed the question of what types of support would be meaningful with the group, and including the potential for direct support and indirect support. And for the purpose of our discussion and in this presentation, we looked at direct support as, exactly that, financial support that would be provided directly to a business. So for example, something like a grant or a low interest loan, and then indirect support being financial support that was used to lift the economy as a whole. So examples there being, public events or an event series to draw visitors, coordinated marketing, which we've talked about a bit already, and et cetera. And businesses largely expressed that really they need both direct and indirect support. And for direct support, we had some open-ended questions, but businesses indicated that grants would help with direct operational expenses, including payroll, insurance, HOA dues, and commercial rent relief was also identified in many responses. For indirect support, the need for significant marketing effort during the recovery was certainly identified. Continued free parking and production of events to encourage visitation and bring the community together were mentioned. There were a lot of creative ideas in the indirect support category. And I should have mentioned at the top that we did include the comprehensive responses in today's packet. So while we're reporting on general takeaways, there is that greater level of detail, and we're happy to pull up any of those slides here when we conclude. And then also the desire to reestablish an economic recovery council was shared to lead recovery efforts similar to what was put into place during the COVID recovery. And so I'll conclude things there. Again, we have a lot more detail on these slides. I think really just cannot be overstated the impact that our businesses are feeling, and the known, the fact that the longer that this situation continues, that those impacts are going to continue to be magnified. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions. We're happy to dive into any particular items from the Mentimeter.
Any questions? Anybody online? All right. Well, we went through that fast, but I hope the magnitude of what we learned and what we heard isn't lost on people. It was an extremely sobering and eye-opening discussion yesterday. All right, well, at this point, we'll turn to Paul and Michelle for an overview regarding possible business support mechanisms.
Yeah, while we do the traditional transition that never goes well, I do think that Scott accurately notes that, it is a very real impact, but I think that the 200 plus people that are participating in this presentation tonight need to recognize that individuals and businesses within our community are on a margin every day that they are here, and it is a very thin margin. We are less than 2 weeks into this strike, and we are already seeing businesses and individuals having to leave our community. And I think it's important that we be mindful of that as we get out of this situation. But given the situation that we're in and everything that was just articulated, we need to figure out how to support businesses and help them continue to thrive to the extent they can and survive, more important, so that when the TSG labor dispute does end, we can get back open and we can welcome the world back to our wonderful community and have that be a positive experience for everybody. So we have put together, in addition to the Good Neighbor Fund, a separate business support system that we're, for the moment, though I expect it to change, the STEADY program, which stands for the Short-Term Economic Assistance for Disrupted Years program. This program is intended to, as I said, prevent businesses from closing or otherwise laying off individuals who will then leave the community, thus rendering those businesses unable to operate at the capacity we need them to operate when we return to normalcy. As we're thinking about what we're going to put into this program, I think that, at least for purposes of this discussion, it is a temporary program, though, as I note at the end of my memo, certainly not for discussion tonight, but going into the future, I don't think that this is the last time that we are going to see a troubled spot in our economy due to external forces. And we may want to consider that a program like this might want to be stood up on a more permanent basis and funded as such. We also want to make sure that this program is focused on small businesses and the small business workforce, not to pick on or otherwise denigrate chains or national brands that are within our community, but they are certainly operating on a different economic system than some of the smaller businesses that are truly the lifeblood of our community. So what does the STEADY program entail? We are going to inject money into a fund that will be supporting businesses. And I want to make clear that there are no dollar amounts associated with any of this. We need direction from council, and I specifically didn't want to put dollar amounts in any of either the memo or in this presentation because I didn't want people thinking that was the amount. But we are definitely looking for that direction from you. But what we have conceived is that there's going to be a tiered program. The first tier being locally owned, visitor-dependent brick and mortar businesses. Another question for you guys is where in the waterfall here food carts and other such businesses fall in this. But in that first tier, those locally owned brick and mortar businesses would basically get first crack at the dollar amounts and have higher dollar amounts allocated to them. That second tier is locally owned lodging and accommodation providers with a physical presence. And finally, the last group receiving dollars would be local service providers that support brick and mortar businesses like property management firms, cleaning services, and local transportation providers. I just want to make clear that I really struggled with tier 1 or tier 2 and tier 3 in terms of how that allocation goes and whether or not those two should be flipped. I had input from a variety of people and it was basically split. So this is where we ended up, but I would suggest that that be yet another area of discussion for this group tonight. So these businesses will be theoretically getting funds, and we can skip that slide. And those funds can go to a variety of different uses, from payroll to employee benefits, commercial rent, mortgage payments, utilities, insurance, license. On this list, I think that there may be room or open to discussion about maybe the license fees are being waived, so they're not having to be paid. There is a downstream effect to that, of course. For example, if we're waiving short-term rental fees, then that money's not going into our marketing fund, and the marketing effort that we're going to talk about here in a moment, and Kira and Scott touched on, won't be funded in the way that we traditionally fund it. So I do think we need to be mindful of where and how we're making those cuts. With respect to payroll, I struggle with this in two ways. One, payroll, as Pete has pointed out to me, constitutes a massive number within businesses, and perhaps if it's going to payroll, it's eating up some of these other things and may not actually go to the actual goal of keeping the business open. And we need to be mindful of the fact that some of these employees are going to be receiving other kinds of assistance. That brings me to my second concern, or thing that I have struggled with, is how the Good Neighbor Fund and this fund truly interact with the employees. The Good Neighbor Fund, for a lot of good reasons, cannot disclose to us who is actually receiving any funds or the amount that they're receiving. So if we give money to a business and they say, and we make a requirement that they contribute some of that money to payroll, we have no way of knowing whether or not we are maybe over allocating resources to a specific individual. And so we really need to think through how that will work. And that's number 4 or 5 on the list of things that we now need to talk about. Scott?
I just had one thought on that, which is that I've had some early conversations with Jason at the Telluride Foundation about potentially administering a business program as well. And so if they were administering both, they would be in a good position, even behind the veil of confidentiality, to make sure there's not that kind of double dipping.
Yeah, and Zoe has been more effective than I have, and not so subtly pushing Jason to be the administrator of this particular program. So I'm really glad that Zoe's been in those conversations. So hopefully that can be the reality. But if it's not, we will find a different way to do this. We are going to, in terms of structuring grant amounts, we need to be asking questions along the lines of the amount of revenue actually lost, to the point that Ashley was making. We need to see the documentation for that and understand, the actual rent expenses that need to be paid and to whom they need to be paid to. We do need to receive direction again on the amount of funds. So as I continue to chat, have that number in the back of your mind. We also need to figure out within these categories what the recommended percentage is, because I don't think that we're going to be able to say, okay, each tier 1 business gets $50,000. I'm making up a number. I think it's more going to be each business gets a percentage of the revenue lost or gap that they need to fill in order to survive. And so we need some direction on what that number would look like. I think that we need to also think about whether or not eligibility is going to depend on workforce retention. Again, we may have a program in place that is able to help individuals be able to get through this current struggle, but what I think the goal of the business program should be is to assure that those people are not leaving and they know that they have a place to go back and work, because one of our main goals needs to be that when the strike ends, we are back open for business as soon as possible because we have a lot of work to do with our guests, and especially those who have been returning on a regular basis and have a certain level of expectation as to what is supposed to happen. Again, we touched on it that we are hopefully grateful that the foundation will be reviewing all of these applications, but we agree that just like the Good Neighbor program, it needs to be simple, it needs to be a standard form, and it needs to be verifiable to prevent any sort of fraud that is going on. And I think with some of the feedback that we already have a good start on what that form looks like, and we can just fill in some of those blanks that we currently have. So let me just pause there real quick, and let me ask if there are any questions about the general framework for the business support program.
Is this just for our council or is this for both councils?
Both. That's why they're here.
And well, I just didn't know if you were, because you were directing it straight at us. And so this doesn't exist. This has no current funding at all. So we're starting at
We are
zero.
starting at zero. Okay. Yes.
And that's an important point, because as we had discussions as to how are we going to help our community, for those of you that missed our budget presentations that took us, a lot of meetings, 2026 budget for the town that was approved is at a $2 million deficit eating into the general fund for Mountain Village, right? With massive infrastructure projects into the future, and now an unexpected shortfall in top line revenues. But as councils, we came together and we said, we can't just sit and not do anything. But it is important for everybody to understand that the 2026 budget was approved at a deficit, and we are just trying to figure it out. So the town, a lot to say that often, as individuals, as humans, we may think, well, government may fix this. The town does not have endless funds, but we are going to come up with a program really to help the community sustain through this, with just being hopeful that this just ends quickly.
Yeah. I do think one other point to make that's important for both councils, not presuming to speak for Zoe, of course, is that whatever money you put into this fund or the Good Neighbor Fund, we got to find other programs that we're cutting or we're going into reserves. And, I don't know that that is the topic for discussion. I think that needs to be separate, but we're going to have a meeting next Thursday, and I think that's what we need to be talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point for the ski company and for the union representatives to hear, that we're spending money on business recovery that we could be spending on housing, on economic development, on transportation, on the gondola. And so this strike is not only hurting businesses, it is lowering the horizon of possibility for these towns, because we're being forced to spend money on these emergency funds rather than on the aspirations that we have to improve our community.
Before I get to my next point, I see that I said the word reserve, so I've perked Harvey up. So go ahead.
A good setup, but I won't go there. I was just going to add a comment. I don't know if it's a question or comment, but as I've tried to absorb this material and so forth, I just would ask other council members to think about how to focus these various tranches. Things that are focused on the individuals, and this is focused on business. And for me, at least, I would suggest that this focus on business should be focused on fixed costs like rent and so forth, because from my perspective, we want those businesses to be there when the mountain opens. And historically, I think other things, wages and so forth, employees they're more variable. And I think so on this business part, I'm more focused on hitting first the fixed costs.
Thank you.
Well, and I think, Harvey, to your point, in regards to employees as a variable expense, I think there are also different revenue streams that we've discussed already that can supplement, whether it's the Good Neighbor Fund, just general unemployment as well. And so I think that we need to look at everything holistically to see how we're really targeting the support for each and every aspect of the business. So one fund isn't going to serve all of our needs, but I think collectively we just need to make sure that we're focusing very targetedly at the goals that we're trying to set with each group, whether it's the Steady Fund or the Good Neighbor Fund or NIDOS Fund.
Paul, is now when you wanted to hear any thoughts on the tiering?
No,
that
actually,
you presented.
I would prefer to get through this, and then I would like the public to weigh in on kind of this framework in public comment, and then we're going to go back to discussion so you guys can do all of that.
Teddy.
I'll hold my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I just want to add, when you look at the slide that's up there, is boy, I can't wait till we get to that point of it and let everyone know certainly that both of us, I think, we're focused on that stabilization, but I think we're also focused in the long-term reality of that stabilization, and certainly don't think it's going to be months where our locals need our support. It's probably going to end up being, years to catch up. And so I see some of the short term and then all of a sudden recovery. I want everyone to know that we'll do everything we can to make sure that, we'll support you in the long run.
Yeah. And to that point, the study program is meant to be very short term. Hopefully we're talking days, weeks, right? So that we can help businesses get through this period. But then we're back up and running. We've retained employees. Everybody's able to activate as soon as the lifts start turning. And it's at that point where we need to have, more kind of midterm spending and activation going on. We need to have, events that are going to draw people here who maybe not otherwise coming here because our typical guest has already booked alternative plans. They are going elsewhere, and we need to be filling in those gaps this season. And so we need to have a program in place that will get people in our beds, in our restaurants, and in the community spending money through April. And so we need to put that plan together, and we've already started working on what that looks like. But I think the general idea is that we need to be having large concert type events that we would more associate with the summer. And while we haven't always tried those in the winter, this is the time to be brave and get creative and do those sorts of things. Then finally, to Kira's point, we need marketing not only to drive those people here as soon as we get open. We need them both from the region, but from all over the place. And it maybe does need to be a little bit different, targeting different sets of people. But then that marketing it cannot be just for a few weeks. It needs to be sustained and consistent throughout the year in order to assure that we are bringing people back for next year so that everyone is back in the place that we need them to be and we wish they were for this year, and hopefully with better snow. Kira didn't have a number for you. I will say that Mountain Village and Telluride each spend about $1.1 million on our Harsh Hagen supported marketing effort. And I will just throw out there that we need to do at least that for this season alone. I never feel like we are doing enough marketing, in part because we're doing it on our own and without partnership with the ski resort. But this is the time that we need to be really investing that money. And the ski resort also needs to play a part in that, regardless of their philosophical view. That needs to be put aside, and they need to realize that the rubber has now really hit the road. This isn't a philosophical discussion. This is reality, and we need to get everybody that we can possibly get here as soon as possible.
I wanted to ask if Patrick Latcham from TMVOA would be willing to join us on this dais, because I know you guys have talked about being part of something like this. And so if you're willing, you could, take part in the conversation and share your guys' thoughts. You can just sit right here, or you could sit there too.
Any of these two.
And, TMVOA is the Homeowners Association of Mountain Village. It is funded primarily through a real estate transfer tax. And that transfer tax is paid by primary homeowners and second homeowners, many of whom don't have a vote. And so it's important to know that, whatever support is coming from TMVOA is coming from both primary and secondary homeowners, as well as businesses and lodging representatives who participate as well.
Thanks for having me up here, Scott and councils, and appreciate us having a seat at the table for this discussion.
Thank you. We're now going to open it up. Well, we have discussion scheduled for after public comment. So with that in mind, is there any questions for Paul before we have public comment? No. So for the benefit of soliciting more targeted and useful public comment, I'm going to use my prerogative, and I'm just going to throw out some thresholds for these different tiers, not for the point of dictating something for this group, but so that we can hear from people whether this sounds like we're on target, we're too low, or too high. And that would be that whatever formula we came up with, it would be capped at $20,000 for a tier 1 business and at $10,000 for a tier 2 or tier 3 business, as Paul laid out those different tiers. We can talk about that, but I wanted to just throw that out so that as people make comment, they can give us feedback about whether those numbers are too high or too low. Anything else from any elected official before we open it up to public comment?
I think the only other thing that I would love, if we can just sort of contain the public comment and keep the comments specific to the programming that we're discussing and the results that may be felt by the businesses, so that we can stay on target and really make sure that we can craft a great process for the businesses and the community following this meeting.
All right, duly noted. We'll see how that goes. All right, so we're now going to open this up to public comment. I think what we'll do is we will alternate between people in the room and people online. If you're online, you can raise your hand. If you're in the room, you can just approach the microphone. I'm going to read a comment or a statement on public comment. The town council will take your public comments either in person or virtually. Please do not, all those wishing to give public comment must identify their full name and affiliation, if any, to the town of Mountain Village. Would also be helpful if you're willing to identify your employment affiliation. Please keep your comments as brief and succinct as possible. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Please refrain from repeating what has already been said by others. In the interest of time, you can simply state that you agree with the previous speaker's comments. And commenters shall refrain from personal attacks and maintain a civil tone while giving public comment. So with that, let's start in the room. Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you all being here. My name is Brian Ager, and I'm from Telluride, and the rules are for everyone else. It's my favorite statement that Mark Bookshee used to say. But I thoroughly believe what Muhammad Ali used to say about public service is that it's your rent for your time here on earth. So I'm offering you a solution, something that you guys can do together that you could actually decide tonight. And I even give copies to the town of Telluride and the town of Mountain Village. Because regardless of what happens with this labor dispute, I hate to see this happen again for whatever reasons. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to read this real quick into the record, because I noticed that if you didn't have it submitted 48 hours at a time, it wouldn't be part of the record. So I would ask that you make an exception for that. And I give you guys the written submission as well.
I would just encourage you to summarize, because I don't think you're going to get through this in 3 minutes.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it will be in the record.
Okay,
It's just not in the packet that went out today.
Whereas the Telluride Ski Resort is the primary economic engine of the town of Telluride, the town of Mountain Village, and the greater San Miguel County region, supporting local employment, small businesses, public services, and regional tax revenues. And whereas the Telluride Ski Resort operates on lands within the National Forest System, pursuant to a ski area term use special permit issued by the United States Forest Service under federal law. Whereas such permits are intended to authorize the use of public lands for recreational purposes that serve the public interest while ensuring public safety, access, and responsible stewardship of federal lands. Whereas the prolonged closure and non-operation of the Telluride Ski Resort during the winter season has resulted in significant economic disruption, loss of employment, reduced public services, funding, and hardship for residents, businesses within the town and surrounding communities. Whereas non-operation of a major recreational facility authorized on public lands raises substantial questions regarding permit compliance, public access, federal oversight, and the appropriate balance between private operation, discretion, and public land use obligations. The town recognizes that the Town of Telluride Ski Resort is a privately owned enterprise, and that labor relations and business operations are general matters of private concern. However, the use of federally owned lands under a long-term permit implicates broader public interest and federal responsibilities. Whereas, and I'm wrapping up, the town seeks transparency, accountability, and clarification regarding the oversight and administration of the Telluride ski area, including adherence to the approved operating plan and the special services role in ensuring that public lands are used in a manner consistent with the federal law. Whereas the towns do not seek to compel any specific operational decision, but rather to request appropriate federal review and oversight to ensure that public lands are not withheld from reasonable recreational use for an extended or indefinite period of time.
All right, we're going to stop you there.
Cool.
Thanks for the whereas.
My job is, they're telling us we can't access our lands. It's our public lands. So I would like for you guys to come to an agreement, send a letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion. And we will enter that into the record. All right, online?
We have Josh Klein.
Josh Klein. You need to unmute.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Klein. I'm a restaurant operator in Telluride, Colorado, and I want to start by commending the town of Telluride and the Mountain Village for affording us this opportunity to get together. It seems like it's been a long time coming, and I'm happy that we are at the table a little bit in cahoots, so to speak. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I don't know. Okay, great. I want to just tap into a little bit of what's going on in terms of the conversation tonight. In terms of the small business funding acknowledgement, in terms of fairly administering funds, I think that'll be a challenging task. It's just really difficult to do that from a broad stroke to do it fairly. So I'm not sure we're going to get there. But nonetheless, happy to help if I can be. Same thing goes with the Good Neighbor Fund, and I respect Jason Corzine and the Telluride Foundation a whole lot. However, when I went into the office recently and tried to establish an access point for my employees, it was very unnimble in the sense of access for many of the employees that will be looking to pay rent this month and will be out of work. So not a knock on the Good Neighbor Fund at all. I know it's there for good reason, and I know it's accessible. However, in terms of readiness and accessibility, really not, something I can afford my employees to access. For whatever reason. In terms of, FEMA, state, county, town, city, municipal, philanthropic, sales tax relief, leasehold payments, I don't really see a lot of that in action. I see a lot of that as a short-term conversation piece. But in terms of actually getting things done and actually keeping businesses open or people able to stay in the community, I think we have a lot of work to do there. And it's not a matter of doubt. It's a matter of challenge for all of us to get together as we are tonight and to continue the spirit of collaboration and to continue the spirit of support for those that need advocacy. And I want every one of us at the table tonight to hold hands a little bit and understand that this problem is bigger than all of us. Just like the problem with Telski and Ski Patrol is bigger than all of us as well. We kind of have to continue this work and continue to hold hands and to push forward on behalf of the community, because that's what we're all fighting for right now, is our sense of community.
Thank you. Could I, Josh, if you have specific suggestions for how we could implement this more effectively, have a bigger impact on business, can you send an email to our council? And we would love to hear that.
I can reach out to them.
Okay, great. Is there anybody in the room who'd like to make a comment? Yes, in the back, sir.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brandon. I operate as the general manager of Round Up Pizza in Telluride. My comment involves specifically to the allocation of the steady funds that may be put into action here soon. I would just ask that it be considered if the purpose of those funds is retention of employees in our local businesses, that it be considered when you decide the amounts you're going to award services, that the number of employees be considered to that. We employ like anywhere from 50 to 60 employees, so that tier one limit of 20,000 boils down to anywhere $350 to $400 per employee for our business. Whereas if there's a small business that's only operating with like 15 or so employees, that drastically changes the amount of funds allocated to each employee of town. So
that's very helpful. Thank you. Someone online?
We have Jonathan Greenspan.
Jonathan Greenspan? You can unmute.
Okay, can all of you hear me? This is going to be kind of a rapid fire approach here. I am Mountain Village's council's favorite caller, I think, and soon to be the town of Telluride's favorite caller. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because the timer's going to go. Okay, this is not part, this whole thing is not part of the strike. It's part of a bigger issue that has come forth, and that is the fact that the West is dealing with a major drought. There's so many ski areas that have not been able to open up or operate with minimal facilities and minimal terrain open. Park City, Deer Valley, the Palisades, etc. We all know where they are. So with the inability to be able to make snow because of warmer temperatures and the fight about the tax increase for the transportation, many other things such as the water cost and now the patrol. The patrol is being blamed for something that's more systemic than anything else here, okay? It is just pretty ridiculous. They're taking the heat. I fully support them. Now, if this strike, it's already been said a couple times, but if this is not resolved by February, by the way, I'm 103 Spring Creek Drive in the Mountain Village, not paid by the ski company at all or anybody else. It's been mentioned a couple times that if you guys don't open by February, if Chuck doesn't pony up for the money by February, I'm sorry, your season is lost. You're not going to be open for 5 or 6 weeks. It's going to be ridiculously hard to get people in there. And it's taken 50 years to build our brand and torn down in one season. I do believe that he's purposely, and I'm going to get to the solution here in a second, purposely driving down our economy on both sides of the hill to just ask, to get it to a point that we have to ask him for mercy. That's a bunch of crap. That's not going to happen. Our property values are suffering as well, but I'm not looking for a bailout. I actually have 2 ski employees renting my house and they're suffering as well, okay? Now, there are never amenities put in to have other activities besides the ones that TMVOA and the town put in, like a coaster or sledding hill or something. Now, these things were sold out where I'm at repeatedly over the holidays, and it was good to see. By the way, the constituents and the people that live in the Mountain Village, they're your voters on this whole thing. So here's the solution, okay? And it's been tossed around this town for quite a bit, and after 20 years of the same stuff going over and over and over again, I do feel bad for a lot of the employees, but it's time to condemn the ski area on both sides of the hill. We need to boycott their facilities and their restaurants. We need to expand the strike to all of the departments of the ski company. And there's a petition I sent you earlier from Mr. Winston that I would love it if you guys would consider this.
Jonathan,
and
thank
talk
you.
about it with the community. And my last comment, Scott, thank you for listening, is somebody with no soul cannot break the town with soul.
Thanks for that. Someone in the room? That's in the room? Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
Howdy, my name is Scott Keating from Crawford Cowboy. I'm here to talk about the Steady Fund. We're super excited for this, and when we heard the potential for a business relief fund, we just thought that we can put people to work. We have musicians coming in, we have yoga teachers coming in, we have people coming in which we can put them to work and host a space. We have a space where we can host people, but we've been kind of retracting and running lean because of unknown times. So we haven't had to lay anyone off, but we also haven't necessarily used our space for the full capacity it can be. The one thing I would request is that admin duties related to these funds be minimized for a quick use of the funds, because sometimes these government programs can be buried with admin, and I already have 40 hours a week of admin, and I hate being in the office, and I don't. So I guess I would just request from the government that you trust the people you're putting money into rather than needing to prove penny for penny who we are.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, online?
We have Douglas Tooley.
Doug, you're on. We seem to have lost him. So why don't in person, why don't you testify while we're seeing if we can get Doug back? Share your thoughts.
Speak yesterday, I got a little emotional. I'm Caitlin Sappington, Disco Swell Custom Hats. I'm based in Telluride, but I do plenty of pop-ups here in Mountain Village, so I'm a little bit of a hybrid. I just wanted to share that for different reasons, I have a business loan with the Telluride Foundation, and my business legitimately would not be here if it was not for them. There is no shame for asking for help, and there's other resources beyond money that exist there, like people in their professional network that can get in the trenches with you and problem solve with you. So if you're feeling like you're backed in a corner right now, there are people that will workshops. I just want to share that. Also, it can't just be on our town governments and the foundation to raise money for the Steady program or this Good Neighbor Fund. Think about anyone that you can ask to contribute. Today in my shop, it came up organically in conversation, and some visitors actually donated on the spot. And tomorrow I'm going to have information about these things, whatever's available at that time, just displayed. I think that's really important because you never know who's wanting to help when you think about a place that you've visited your whole life. And just you probably want to help it. So, yeah, we are going to weather this storm. That's all.
Thank you. Someone online, and if anybody wants to testify in person, you can line up so we can get you right on.
We have Mr. Tooley back.
Comment.
Yeah, share your
Comment.
thoughts.
Sorry.
Hey, I got cut off. Did you hear anything at all of what I said?
Doug, you please go ahead. We can hear
Did
you.
you hear anything at all of what I said before? Are you hearing me now?
No, right now.
Are you hearing me what I'm saying right now?
We can hear what you're saying now, but we have not heard what you said before.
Okay, so per the reasons, some of the reasons related to what John Greenspan spoke of, I am now Mountain Village's only official homeless resident with a voter registration at 455 Mountain Village Boulevard, the building you are all sitting in, those of you who live there in person. You speak of a personal attack policy. VMP talks about staying on topic. And I'm sorry, it is a foundation of our rule of law, of our constitutional rule of law, that we can speak to criticism. Failure in government, failure in business, failure in science is what makes those things great, allowing those to happen. And if such is handled responsibly, responding to it in a personal attack fashion, a sexually malicious attack fashion, is something that is going to destroy the soul, has destroyed much of the soul of this community. I have heard small business people online, property owners, small businesses in Telluride, try and blame the ski union for addressing too big to fail workforce issues, which are present in this community, more so than they are in the rest of the country. And it's critical of the rest of the country as well. I've heard Jocelyn Lichtenberg, the previous owner, the descendant of the previous owners, speak in support of the union, but a family who has substantial property holdings, and have done nothing, including at the transfer warehouse, to actually build workforce housing. Mr. Pearson, I hear you reflecting that same attitude. And, we talked about getting into this crisis and, getting back the soul of this community. And, as the first speaker addressed, looking at the public land ownership aspect of this ski enterprise is part of the solution. And, you folks are way overdue. So pay up. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Yes, sir.
Good evening, all. My name is Bennett, and I'm a Telluride Controller. And it's become quite apparent that the inconvenience of this strike is far greater than if one of us died doing our job.
Thank you, sir. Anybody online?
He has Michael Martz.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Michael Mars, president of Bear Creek Lodge Owners Association, and a resident, part-time resident of Mountain Village for 25 years. I want to truly commend both boards for their focus and effort. We're grateful. I think the funds and the amount of money, it's hard for me or our owners to comment on. We trust the staff and the data, but I will say that I respect that the tourism board can only address the data they have today. But I do, and it seems apparent that you people recognize that it is significantly going to grow at exponential rates. We're operating at a 50% staff reduction, and we're trying to support the other staff. But there's, we also have the gondola project. So the amount of money needed to protect the economic sustainability is vast and needs to, you can't, I don't think it's enough to say you got to keep doing it, and they need to find ways beyond, the ski. I mean, to the extent you can figure out how to utilize the mountain, as one of the speakers mentioned, whether it's toboggans, sled runs, other public sources to insulate yourself from, I'm sure their intentions are good, but 82 people are creating substantive pain. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody in the room? Yes, sir.
Open up with apologizing for being a failure of government earlier. Should have known with both councils in the full room here that we're going to run a little tighter ship today. Just to dovetail off of what Michael was saying and to help maybe combine some data with the air and the lodging and the tourism board metrics from what Pete was asking earlier, is that from where we stand with our data, about 40% of February is still yet to book, and 65% of March. So combining that with Kira's data and ours as well, if phones ain't ringing, that's the potential gap. I think that question is really coming around to. So that if we don't fix this very quickly, and then the way that these arcs work, and it's already been illustrated, that these are the 3 biggest booking weeks of the year. And so if we miss these 3 weeks right now, it's very heavy February, and then March tails out a little bit longer, we stand to miss out on 40% of our second biggest month and 65% of our largest month of the year as it goes for air, for revenues, et cetera. So the financial gap that could occur right now is substantial and compounding through the year. And just wanted to add that data that we have from the year to hopefully illustrate that a little bit.
It's really helpful. Thank you. And just adds to the urgency of resolving this fast. Anybody online?
We had Stacy Ostromecki.
Stacy?
Good evening. My name is Stacy Ostromecki, a town of Telluride resident. I'm a firefighter and vice president of the Telluride Volunteer Fire Department. I'd like to share that the Telluride Volunteer Fire Department and Telluride Fire Protection District are hosting a free community chili dinner this Saturday, January 13 at 5 p.m. We'll have 300 meals and serve until supplies last, with vegetarian chili available too. Bilingual representatives from Tri-County Health will be available to provide information on the Good Neighbor Fund and healthcare and mental health resources. For more information, or if you have any questions, please contact us at tvfd@telluridefire.org.
Thank you.
You did cut out a little bit. Can you just restate that time for the listening audience, please?
5 p.m. on Saturday.
Thank you.
Saturday the 10th?
Yes.
Okay, great. Alberto.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alberto Davis. I'm the owner of Latin Creations. As everybody knows, the restaurant is shut down right now. However, we are working on a plan to have it reopen. I just want to mention this without taking any sides. It's affecting everybody. The weather, what is happening, etc., especially small businesses, family businesses. And I will never like to put my family in any jeopardy to lose our home or anything like that. Thank you for having this meeting. I mean, I think we all have to work together, small businesses, government, etc., to go through just like COVID, like you guys mentioned it. And yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
We have Ronald Carlson. You ready?
Great. Ron?
How about now?
Yep, you're on.
Briefly,
I appreciate everybody's efforts, but I think they're Band-Aids. I think we should ask our state legislative representatives for emergency legislation requiring a 60-day cooling off period and mandatory arbitration, since it's a public interest type of company. I think that we should ask the legislature for relief with emergency legislation. That's all.
Thanks, Ron. How long do you think that would take?
I know the Speaker of the House. I'd have to ask her.
Maybe you
I
can
think
follow
that could
up.
be done. I think it could be done in 20 days, based on prior legislative experience on emergencies. But it is unpredictable. But if you don't ask, the time runs anyhow.
Thank you. Ilana?
I'm a local resident and a small business owner, and I wanted to really reiterate what I just heard a minute ago: the spirit of Telluride, spirit of community, all over this place. If you just close your eyes and breathe in and remember the time you first came here, you are here. It draws us all. Who belongs is here. Some people come for financial interest. That usually happened after 2001. But basically, when people came, they came because there's something them in here. When I moved here in '95, there was no prosperity. You could buy a condo for $100,000, one bedroom, no problem. And people had rusty cars. There were no SUVs. Eventually, next year, you would see one SUV, 13 rusty $500 cars. So I'm just bringing that in, not to depress us, but to say we are resilient. And we fed each other. When my friends lost their jobs, I lived in DC, with that big Belize at the very beginning. Rice, beans, chicken, we got together, we had a spirit, we survived. We can do that. And in 2008, when there was a crash, I organized offered a little class in the library. And I'm talking about the recovery. Recovery can happen quickly. Just prepare your email list for all your clients, say, we have snow, the place is open. Hopefully, the meeting of the minds will happen. I'm holding my fingers crossed. But I have noticed over the years, clients who talk to me, I'm a massage therapist, they want to know. They're relaxed, and they tell me what they never tell marketing specialists. And they would say, I'm always watching for specials in Telegram. I want to come back. As soon as I see the special, I'm here. So that is a very, very important marketing insight. My background is in marketing and sales. So that is huge. And get ready for it. Imagine it. In 2008, I had a class for 2 hours in the library on a horrible blizzard day. People came in, and we were just doing simple processes with breathing. And I'd like to offer it to the Telluride Foundation. I will end with this. We could do it for community. We had 24 people. One business attracted a good client from that. Somebody attracted an apartment that was half the price that the VA could afford. And we do it again next month, and people share. So that is here. We have the resources, and just hold our fingers crossed that the meeting of the minds will happen and we prosper. And the brand is not lost just because of one event.
Thank you. Sunlight?
We have Carl Hauser.
Carl, you're on. Also, people are having trouble hearing public comment in the room, so if you do testify, please speak right into the mic. Comment. You'd think I was a former prosecutor or something, which I was not. Carl is no longer on.
Looks like Carl's not on. We have Kayla Bell.
Kayla Bell. Kayla, you're on.
She just muted herself.
Kayla? All right, why don't we mute Kayla's...
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Great, awesome. Sorry about that. Kayla, Telluride resident. I just want to express that I'm very concerned with the pushback that Ski Patrol has to stop striking right now. largely because this isn't performative, it's leverage. If the resort owner won't negotiate and workers aren't being paid, the pressure is supposed to be felt throughout the community. If people with means want to help right now, some of these funds that are being mentioned are the best way to directly take action instead of asking patrol to give up the only power that they have, and that this is what collective action looks like. If a single billionaire can crater a town by sitting it out, the problem isn't the strike, it's the imbalance of power, and bending the knee just guarantees this continues to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you suck it, dumb bitch, because you're the one that's eating shit.
No.
Oh, my Lord.
Who is?
Oh my God.
Isn't everybody muted other than the speaker?
I'm muted. That's strange.
All right. Does the commenter have anything more she wants to say? And hopefully we can avoid that interruption.
No.
No.
No hands.
All right. In the room? Anybody else? Anton?
Hello, I'm Anton Benitez, President and CEO of TMBOA, and I'd just like to really dovetail off Matt's comments and give everybody a little bit of additional context. I have for me the last 4 years of spending in Mountain Village comprised of lodging, retail, and restaurant. They are for the year: 154 million, 162 million, 166 million, 165 million. If you look at this last 4 years and you break down into percentages, it almost works out perfectly. 2/3 of the spending, and this is specific to Mountain Village, comes from winter. That is what is at stake. So as Matt said, this needs to be resolved ASAP so that we can still leverage February and March. With that, TMBOA is an owners association representing members from the residential class, the lodging class, the commercial class, and the special members class, which is TSG. We would ask very thoughtfully the two parties that are negotiating to come together, sit in a room, work this out. It can be worked out. I would just ask you, please take a stab at this over the next day or two.
Thanks, Anton. Anybody else online? Anybody else in the room? Or Catherine
Catherine
Devlin?
Devlin.
All right, Catherine, you can speak. Catherine?
She's muted.
Catherine's muted. All right, anybody else in the room would like to speak? Yes, Dan.
Is this public comment on steady or just general public comment?
The intent is on steady, but we aren't.
I'll be back.
We don't have any other public comment. We don't have any other public comments. So if you have something,
I do have Catherine.
Yeah.
It sounds like
We're not doing another public.
No. So this is your big chance.
Jansen, Mountain Village resident, short-term rental, license holder, co-owner of a Main Street business in Telluride with my wife. By that I mean my wife owns that business. I don't want to get into who's right and who's wrong. I hate when people get up here and complain, so I want to give 4 things I encourage you to think about doing. And it's so awesome to see Telluride Town Council here. I hope you do this a lot more. Thing 1, an economic impact study. Anton's numbers are scary. But those are total numbers. What's the hit on a day-by-day basis starting today, starting tomorrow, and at the end of the season? Well-run businesses do post-mortems when they are impacted economically. So what happened? What we do well? What did we not do well? That information will inform thing 2. Massive marketing program. Kira is too nice to put on a number. I'm not. $1 million. $250,000 for government, $250,000 from TMBOA. I know that's double dipping. Mountain Village, live here, get over it. We need to go big. We need to go bold, shock and awe, because the damage here is significant. My worst fear is we don't settle the strike. My second worst fear is we settle it tomorrow and everybody thinks we're done. This is going to last a while. I had 3 groups of visitors who have all canceled. Vale is very happy. I'm kind of happy not to have 10 people in my house, but it's a bad thing for our economy, and I think this is going to last. To Matt's point, the booking window is now. This shock and awe marketing campaign has to say we're open, we have amazing snow, wink, wink. We have a lot of places available, come on up. Right, thing 3 is the Economic Recovery Council. We talked about it during COVID, our last shock. We decided that the county was doing an amazing job taking care of public health. Nobody's really focused on the economic impacts. This is analogous. If everything turns out beautiful per the economic impact study, we shut it down. What we did is the Tourism Board and the Flight Alliance got 20 representatives together from every sector who came up with plans for their sectors, because some sectors are going to do good. The guy last night here from the snowmobiling company, he's crushing it. Good for him. The next guy got up and Ski Butler and said we're down 60 to 70%. So rather than you guys having to come up with all the solutions, great. Please keep doing it. Steady, awesome. Keep going. Have the business sector bring proposals to you that are customized and bespoke to their sector so that you can have customized solutions. I don't want that to go anymore.
Thank you. Catherine Devlin, we'll try one more time. You're muted.
She's got to unmute herself.
You have to unmute yourself. There we go. Oh, going once, going twice. All right. Is there anybody else in the room like to make public comment? Then I think, yes? Yeah, come on up, please, sir.
Hey everybody, I wished I had solutions for y'all.
Your name?
Someone needs to speak up for
Name?
Christopher Fish, Telluride Brewing Company, co-founder, owner with Tommy Thatcher. TMBOA brought us up here several years ago. So number one, we'd like to thank TMBOA, the Mountain Village, the Ski Patrol, and our county for all they've done for our business. We're fucking terrified. And I think that's my message. I mean, we can't sleep. I don't sleep anymore. If it's affecting our families, I respect that patrol deserves a wage. I respect that we all do. My team is, it's a bloodbath. And I think, I don't know how to solve it, but I just think somebody that owns a business in the core, owns a business in Lawson Hill. We just opened a brand new restaurant a few weeks ago. I mean, whew. It's gnarly, and everybody needs to wake the fuck up and make a deal. Thank you.
All right, unless there's anybody else, I think we're going to close public comment. Paul?
Paul Savage, resident of Mountain Village. First off, I'd like to thank everybody in this room and everybody online, trying to figure this out tonight. Oscar Wilde said, some men can only improve this world by leaving it. And speaking of Chuck,
Let me just remind you that our public comment policy about disparaging other people.
Really no one here or online should ever eat at any one of these restaurants. Grab a trail map, eat local, buy your beer locally. Unfortunately, we all have to give this person our passport. We live here, we gotta ski here. But we don't, and no one should give him another nickel. No one. Look at what this man is accused of. The Denver Post, sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape. He's accused of it. This is true. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said by the Denver Post. He's also accused of stealing from the people that are, his company is accused of stealing from the people that are most desperate in this community.
I would just ask that you refrain from personal attacks.
Please, go to companies that deserve your money. You need to vote with your money. You need to tip well. You need to take care of small businesses. And we have to know what we're up against here. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Online, we'll try one last time with Catherine Devlin. You're on.
Did it work?
Yes.
Hi, great, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to operate a very old phone. I'm Catherine Devlin, Telluride resident and member of the Telluride Ski Patrol. First of all, I really agree with what Kayla said. Thank you so much for your comment. Sorry you were interrupted. What I'd like to say is I'd like to point out that ownership of the ski area has the resources to create a contingency plan in the event of a ski patrol strike. They have refused to do so. The members of the Telluride Ski Patrol Association care not only about our safety, but we care about this community. We are a part of this community. This ski area could be open in greater capacity without us, being on strike. If we are on strike, it could be open in greater capacity. It's not because ownership doesn't care about you. Grooming, guest services, lift operations, ski school could all be working in a greater capacity. That would have brought more tourism to the town this week. Any grievances that you have about losses should be aimed at ownership and not at ski patrol. And we are doing everything we can to make a deal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in person? We have a couple more online. All right. Ellen. Well, Ellen went away. Kath Jett.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for your service, both boards. What the ski patrol is doing is exactly the right thing, and the rest of the ski area employees should also be walking off. When I came to work for Telluride a while ago, granted, I had already had 10 years of service in the position that I took with that company. I took a 50% pay cut for the privilege of working there. There were other departments. I travel around a lot for work, and everybody in that company is underpaid. If you travel to another resort and ask people what they're making, we're not even close. One of the suggestions that I made to one of the TMVOA boards earlier was, I spent 10 years in Summit County, and we had very big off seasons. Kind of like here, it shut down. When you would walk down Main Street, the only people you knew were people you knew, or that you saw. And one of the things, we had this great thing called the Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber of Commerce would create incentives for the businesses to get the locals in the door. So my suggestion would be to create some sort of locals pass, working with the local businesses, not necessarily TSG, to get people indoors. You guys subsidize those businesses so that they can offer discounts to the people that are not working and keep their doors open. There was one winter or one fall that I went up to Whistler in October. And if you've ever been to Whistler in October, it's rainy and dreary. But their core was jumping. And I was asking everybody who was working, whether they were a waiter or whether they were information or whatever, I said, why is it so busy? And they said, because we care about the people who live here and we make sure they're here year round. So we've got to take care of the people that are here year round, that are supporting the people that aren't here year round. Thanks for letting me comment.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? I think we have one more online. Ellen? No, she's gone. Okay, we'll close public comment and I guess now open it up to discussion about the STEADY program.
Yeah, and I think we need staff level direction on several items, and not mandating that this is how this goes, but I think that the governments need to decide what initial amount they want to put into the program so that we know what we're dealing with. I think there needs to be a discussion as to whether or not that tier structure is correctly formulated. Third, I think we need to decide what the eligible expenses are. I think we've heard a variety of opinions on that from the public. It's worth probably discussing how the fund interacts with the Good Neighbor Fund. And finally, setting a percentage amount within those tiers. If we could get some direction on at least some of those items, I think that would be a good start so we could get this up and running to the extent that we want to do that.
Thank you so much for framing that. Who wants to go first?
Could we go like one at a time?
Yeah, let's go with what amount do you guys want to put in?
Where did Patrick go? Oh, there you are. What do you guys want to put in? We'll match you one for one.
I appreciate that, Scott, but I'm going to listen to you guys first and we'll be going from there.
Well, I'll open the bidding with $500,000. You guys want to match that?
Well, I have to talk with my board. I'm not going to commit to anything here without talking to them. My role is to execute their desires, but I will say we're having a meeting on Friday at 2 p.m. to go over just this. And I'll just note that our board's showing that they're moving quickly, especially with the new members. And just a minor example is that holiday programming. So we will be discussing this on Friday, and then I'll have feedback for everyone.
Zoe?
Yeah, I just want to start, you mentioned the financial position that Mountain Village was in with adopting their budget at a deficit. The town of Telluride also adopted a deficit budget at $1.17 million. So as we go through this, I just want to keep iterating that this is at a cost to reallocate these funds that could have compounding effects into the future. And as we're looking at that, I just want to give context to everyone that we all wish we could put all of the money toward this, but there are lots of give and takes to weigh for the betterment of the community. So with that, I'll leave it up to council, but without understanding exactly the amount and where we'll pull it from, and then in discussions what that give and take is for a better understanding, I think we can talk through hypotheticals and go through that modeling a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and I think to everybody, just for the general public, I think it's important to understand that when we are talking about these numbers and we're talking about deferring programming, it's not a dollar to dollar ratio. Anything that we defer is more expensive when we come back to it again. And so if we allocate $100 to this, it likely will cost $120 when we finally get to spend those dollars on what it is intention, or what was it originally intentioned for. I'm going to throw out a number that Zoe doesn't love, but I would like to see us put $1 million into this fund and hope that we do not have to spend it.
On that though,
I've got some places. I think
Dan?
Oh, sorry.
I agreed with everything you said up until the dollar amount.
Fair.
I think that
I mean, nobody agrees with me, Dan. Just so you know.
My preference is to continue to prioritize direct assistance to individuals while starting a program here with the STEADY Fund that has room to grow in the future as need continues to evolve. So this feels a very difficult exercise to pinpoint a number when this meeting was only agendized a little over 24 hours ago, and there's obviously many factors to determine both the scale of need and our capacity to help. So I would prefer to start small, but be willing to continue to grow in the future. I lean closer to Scott's number, but my gut at the beginning was saying closer to $250,000 for this specific program, and then looking to grow from there.
And Dan, I would just say that, you know, if my number of 500 was matched by 500 from TMVOA, then that would actually be $1 million from the Mountain Village entity, as we sometimes call it. Teddy?
I just want to let everybody know, you know, when we were asked to join this meeting, we wanted to, and we were very excited to be invited to come up here. But in no ways are we prepared to throw any numbers out. I also want everyone to know in the room and listening in our community to know that I know that Zoe and our staff are talking about significant numbers. We're not trying to shy away from $1 million. We're not trying to say we're going to give 250,000 as two numbers that were thrown out there by other council members. We're just not ready yet. We will be ready as soon as possible. I'd love to say immediately, but that would mean right now, and that's not going to happen. But we really are discussing it, and have some faith in Zoe, our finance department, and how we can move some numbers around, move some money around, and make a significant contribution.
All right, so we'll go with the presumption that we have money to do this, and it's not a waste of our time to keep on doing it, and we'll go put it together.
Okay.
Ashley?
Ashley?
I think that I hear you, Teddy, and I think that we need to at least kind of say like what our ballpark is going to be. I think that for the sake of this discussion, for the sake of everyone that's here, just for the immediacy of it, I think that like we probably need to at least come up with a range. I have a question, Zoe. Don't we have the town has town council discretionary? What do you call them?
Sure, $10,000.
It's only $10,000.
Yeah. I mean, if council wants to go through this, if we were to look, you know, utilizing our general fund reserves, that would be then looking to forego any of our market or merit increases for staff, maybe not doing our new positions budgeted for 2026, looking to reduce case funding. You know, there are impacts to all of these pieces. If we look at our town lodgers tax fund, that is directly funding our marketing arm. So we don't really want to tap into that fund because we know the importance of that. We can look at our reserve capital improvement fund, but those reserves are looking toward the future of wastewater and the gondola and some of those larger capital projects. So that would, you know, take back on that. So we can look for that money in a lot of these places, but as I alluded to, there are severe give and takes to all of those things, which I think we can weigh and have an understanding for. And without knowing the future of how this is in general going to be impacting our budget and what those use of the reserves are going to be needed for just standard town operations and whatnot, that's where it puts us in these difficult positions.
I think it's important also to know, as far as I understand it, we're also not approving anything.
Yep. Right.
We are throwing a number out here for staff to then go through, right,
Mm-hmm.
and perform a budgetary exercise to try and identify funds. But staff also has the ability to come back and say, despite our best efforts, we only came up with $150,000, right? And then it goes in through the procedural of a work session or whatever it may be for council to then approve it. You know, again, I go back to this is us as council in feeling powerless as the entire community is feeling. These are our efforts to really help the community. But as far as I understand it is, we are not approving. So I would hate for anyone in this room to walk away thinking that, oh, sweet, you know, council just approved millions of dollars. We're just trying to come together and put numbers together. They have to be reviewed by staff and then be brought back to council.
In terms of timing, we have a council meeting next Thursday, the 15th. Paul, I'm not sure what the process is. Can we vote on a budget amendment with one vote, or is it going to take two votes?
No, I mean, you can actually even just give us direction and we could come back with a supplemental budget at a different time because we're early enough in the year where we're not overspending our budget. So, but we can be prepared to bring a resolution with a blank to fill in.
So could we, I don't know when your guys' next meetings are, but could we?
I think we're all prepared for as many special meetings as we need for this.
I mean, I think we could, if you feel like you'd have a week to design the program, you know, I would think we could be ready to vote on an appropriation a week from Thursday.
Paul, so going to the mechanics or the outline of the program, and trying to turn us away from an absolute number today. Where I've been thinking about this and trying to listen and absorb everything, I take to heart very strongly the need for us to help with the Good Neighbor Fund. I think that's been discussed and it's really important. I think the idea of us being ready with our marketing, our events, etc., so that when the mountain opens, we're full speed ahead and try to salvage as much of the season as we can is the biggest win for our businesses. And I feel the direct payment aspect of it to be very stopgap, very temporary, you know, get through a week or month or whatever it is. And so I think that's the smaller piece of it as I think of the parts of it. And so that's how I would think about it as you're trying to put together the priorities and the mix. I think the direct payment it might be helpful, but these bigger issues are what's really going to pull the businesses up.
Okay. Do you want to turn to the next? Sorry, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I guess I'll just weigh in quickly. You know, yesterday's BDAG meeting was very eye-opening for me, where I think almost half of the businesses, or maybe 40% of the businesses, said we think we can make it the next 3 weeks. So to me, I think time is of the essence. And Scott, your number might be a little bigger than mine, but I'm certainly in that ballpark.
Thank you, Pete.
I'll just add, appreciate you putting a number out there, and you know, I'll echo. It feels like it's in the right ballpark, and I know we have a focus on steady right now, but I think something we should work on in this next week is an allocation of an overall emergency relief fund. I see 4 pillars to that, and it's steady, it's the Good Neighbor Fund, programming, and Telluride Tourism Board. And I think collectively we need to look at allocations for each of those.
And I think the town of Telluride hears your targets, so it gives us, you know, a starting point of what to talk about.
Okay. Should we turn to the next item, which was it the tiers?
Yeah, the tier structure. You know, the way it's currently contemplated is that tier 1 is locally owned, visitor dependent brick and mortar businesses. Tier 2 is locally owned lodging and accommodation providers with a physical presence. And then tier 3 is a local service provider who directly supports brick and mortar businesses. So that would be property management, cleaning, maintenance contractors, and local transportation providers. And again, as I mentioned in my presentation, I go back and forth as to whether that is the correct ordering of things.
Does anybody disagree with that structure and that prioritization?
Yes, I'd like to comment on this one specifically. The tier 2 that I do wish to see lowered here, specifically because I think we're almost fighting against ourselves with the lodging and short-term accommodations by artificially keeping those rates higher. If the government is guaranteed, or to at least some degree, the amount of profit they're going to collect, instead of allowing the market to work to lower their rates and thus encourage more visitation by a lower rate instead of allowing for vacancy, we're fighting against ourselves in that way. So I'm not saying that the accommodations segment of our economy is not important. We of course need them and want to support them. I'm fine continuing to keep them on this list, but I think we are working against ourselves by giving that segment a higher prioritization instead of letting the market work and having an incentive to lower rates and encourage visitation with more affordable lodging. So I would strongly encourage this group to lower that group in a tier level and fund those other segments more heavily.
Yeah, and that's kind of consistent with the struggle that I was having.
I mean, we do have to do some legal research on rate collusion because there's a lot about governments getting involved in setting rates or anything that's involved in that. So I think we've got to walk a little bit carefully on that. And I want to just previously to Harvey's comment, I did agree with his ranking of our priorities.
So I don't have a problem with the priorities, the classes, but within the classes, I think the gentleman from Brown Dog brought up a really good point. Within each classification, how do you prioritize? Because 10,000 to one company doesn't mean anything. 10,000 to a smaller company means an awful lot. So the prioritization within the categories is also going to be very important.
Yeah, I think that goes to a later question about, are we going to set percentages, loss, and then you are made up a certain percentage of that loss. And so then that kind of takes out the equation of size in that discussion. But then it results in, obviously some businesses getting a whole lot more money.
Yeah.
I think it has to be scaled, Paul. I mean, that's just slide. I mean,
yeah.
But as long as it's working in conjunction with the other fund for employees, because otherwise we're fighting each other.
Yeah.
I mean, when we look at supporting households, we look at household size and income size in a chart. So we're going to need to see them in a dynamic way.
What was your third?
Eligible expenses, and I think it really comes down to that good neighbor fund interaction. And so are we limiting this to simply rent and mortgage support, or are we willing to expand it to payroll?
Thoughts on that?
I mean, I think doing the payroll thing is going to be tricky, especially because, a lot of businesses, mine included, a lot of those employees get a large portion of their paycheck from tips, and that's going to be really difficult to gauge. And sometimes, though, I would think that perhaps for the businesses, because we have the Good Neighbor Fund, which sounds like that is set up to help employees specifically with their expenses, that when we're looking at businesses, I would say that, either looking at fixed costs, similarly to how we're doing it with the employees with their rents, essentially, is what we're basically saying. Good Neighbor Fund is essentially rent or a medical bill assistance program. But maybe we look at that for businesses as well, some sort of fixed cost or something like that, where it's easy and we pay a percentage of those fixed costs to the businesses. I don't know. I feel like payroll is going to get tricky. Again, just because there's a lot of dynamics there for a lot of different kinds of businesses, and maybe fixed costs are easier, or the idea of, showing your loss in revenues. These businesses should at least have a previous year's revenue worth of, information to go off of. They can show, percentages lost. I mean, I could pull that up for my business really easily to show year over year. So that would be my recommendation, is that we don't use payroll as the way to do it. But whatever anyone else thinks would be good.
Well, I think the other thing, when we sort of started this conversation, the goal ultimately is to keep the businesses open, correct? And so if we look at it through those lenses, or that lens in particular, I think, to Ashley's point, I think fixed costs should be the focus. I think it's rent, it's triple net, it's potentially, fixed utilities, insurance. I think when you look at retail, you have to look at some of those sunk buying costs as well, which could get a little bit tricky. But I think that just for the ease of execution for this particular program, and the fact that we do have the Good Neighbors Fund, and we do have other federal programming that can also support employees, I think we need to, in order to move quickly and nimbly, because right now, we had a business obviously announced that they were going to close. We have several that have texted or called all of us, I'm sure, saying that that is imminent for them. Like, we have got to give them an answer so that the business can make a decision and decide how they are going to survive this, whether it is a week or whether it is a month. And the best way for us to do that is to create some very narrow parameters right now so that we can give them an answer. And if we do need to revisit and expand this in 2 weeks, in a month, I think we do that.
So Mia, when you say right now, do you mean right now today, or do you mean right now?
I mean,
like
Zoe would
the
kill me if I
15th?
said that. And I have to work with her for another 4 years. I mean, I would love for us to suss out really what that scope and what those parameters are. So everybody that is behind me that I can't see right now, and everybody that is online listening, can go to bed and hopefully get some sleep tonight. Whether the answer is wrong or whether the answer is right, at least they have an answer from us.
Teddy?
And I got to add another thing that really makes it hard to dive down on some of the numbers right at this moment is that, depending on what, final number the Mountain Village comes up with based on their businesses, their number of businesses that operate, that number is going to be a lot different than what the town of Telluride comes up with financially and the number of businesses that operate in Telluride. So while I think we can definitely be aligned in how we do it and what we're doing, the reality is those two numbers might be different. And, and that's why it's tough to put numbers out and why we really got to dive in and see how much effort we can put into it at the town of Telluride, because we're going to have a bigger carry in this, plain and simple.
And that was sort of my point. Sorry, not to just jump into the conversation, but we do, I mean, just like some back of the, well, it's not back of, Zoe took all the numbers out, but we have hundreds of businesses that we are going to have to provide support for. This is going to be a big expense for the town of Telluride.
But I feel like I think that the action of us sitting here together as a collective body speaks to the fact that even though our towns are technically separate, we are really one community. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we need to get down to being like, well, you got more people on your side, and it's that's not the point. We all recognize that each of us is integral, each business is integral to the functioning system that is our entire body. And I don't think we need to start parsing it down to who has more businesses or who has more residents or any of that. We need to focus on the totality of the issue that we're dealing with here and what brings the most success to the entire body.
Does Mountain Village feel okay with that?
I think we approach this from the perspective of, the Mountain Village entity would be equal to the town of Telluride. I could see why some would say, oh, the town of Telluride has more people, more businesses, but
Scott, we didn't discuss that. You shouldn't assume that that's the conclusion.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, when I was evaluating this, I broke it into two pieces: determination of how we would award it, and I thought about it really from a top line revenue perspective in comparison to prior years. And then if awarded, what the funds, I compare this to the PPP loan. If awarded, what the funds can be used for. And so from a determination perspective, it's a loss of revenue, percentage loss, and then you tier it from what you could use it for. I would be more in favor to support it to go towards fixed expenses.
Yeah, and so I guess in the spirit of not having to continue to have a circular conversation about amounts, I think maybe we should just focus on being able to provide everyone here guidance as to what they can expect to be able to seek reimbursement for when they leave here tonight. And so is it, are we talking about payroll, or are we talking about kind of everything else but?
Well, if our goal is to keep our community members in our community, we also have to make sure that there's a protection, that we can't just be like, oh, we're paying your fixed costs for you, but you're still going to let go of all of your staff, right? So they are interconnected when the ultimate goal is to maintain our community members.
Yes.
Yes.
And you might have struggling businesses that operate out of homes and things of that nature that might be harder to quantify numbers like that if you're going on lease payments that are part of the equation.
Yeah, I think that when I've been thinking about this, I think about the study program in a really small time frame. And I'm hopeful that that's where the Good Neighbor Fund can come in so that it can get everybody, the individuals, through that narrower window. Now, if the facts on the ground prove out that I'm wrong, so be it. And then I think we need to come back and either revise the study program or reinvest in the Good Neighbor program, Good Neighbor Fund.
I think to that point, my earlier comments of continuing to prioritize funding that Good Neighbor Fund with direct assistance to individuals, which very much does include business owners, business operators, and limiting the scope of this program, the STEADY program, to those expenses, the triple net that Mian highlighted, just to keep the lights on, the doors open for when business ramps back up. My assumption that when we get back to more normal operations, the vast majority of these businesses, as long as they've been able to bridge this short-term interruption and keep those lights on, will rehire the vast majority of the employees they've had to furlough during this time. And so the assistance is very much needed for those individuals during this time. There's a different mechanism that we have that we should support for those individuals to make sure that that impact is mitigated. But for businesses, the goal should be keep the doors open, keep the lights on, help the individual, help the people, and then when we're all through this, we can work through the rest of the problems at that time.
You know, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what Dan is saying. The cost of keeping the true damage, if we have a Good Neighbor Fund that is helping individuals who are laid off, the business fund, the STEADY fund, perhaps should have a very narrow target of keeping these businesses from going bankrupt. Because once a business goes bankrupt, it's over and it can't come back. If a business is operating, it can rehire staff. And the cost of keeping a business from going bankrupt, i.e. being able to make their fixed costs, is much lower than the cost of a business keeping their employees. And so it may be that given the scope of the need, that these comments about focusing on fixed costs and maybe having less of a commitment that businesses, retain all their staff, might be the way to go.
And just to be clear, you don't mean like actually bankrupt, just
No,
like,
I mean actually bankrupt.
that's a whole structural situation that I don't necessarily, I think I would like to see that we're just keeping the lights on.
Keeping the lights on.
Okay.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
And I'm just going to add, we keep talking about leveraging all of the programs and assistance that is available. And while I think a grant from these governments is a very important part of that system, if businesses are getting to that point, Region 10 has emergency loan funds. The Small Business Association has emergency funds and loans for businesses. So there are, while it's not a grant program, there are other levers that are considered as part of this relief package.
And we've mentioned it briefly, but in addition to the Good Neighbor Fund that we're talking about, there are state unemployment funds. And if you have to go on temporary unemployment because your job can't produce work for you, that's something that's very available. A lot of people do that. It's called job attached unemployment. A lot of people go on it. It's something that we should also mention that if businesses are in a situation where they're not able to retain their employees in that way, that they can still keep them as job attached and say, hey, we're in a financial hardship. We need to, I can't pay these people, and the state will step in and pay part of their wages. So I think that we need to keep that in mind while we're talking about this STEADY. I also want to say, as we're sitting here, just because I'm a big doer person. I want to let's do this stuff. So, chop it up. One of the things that I think maybe we can talk about is we have these tiered systems, and I think maybe if we're leaning towards kind of fixed costs, is that maybe what we look at is that for businesses that fall into each of these tiers, maybe they get percentages of their fixed costs. They can get back up to I would like to set a cap. So figure out if we can do a cap, and then if you're in a tier 1 business, maybe you're whatever percentage we figure out, you're applicable to get a certain percentage of those fixed costs back to you, and then the tier 2 and then the tier 3. That's what I would maybe propose as us for a structure, so that we don't have to figure out those exact numbers right now, but that to me feels like is a good place, and then we could put caps at each of those tiers as well.
And that's what we contemplated, and I agree that maybe each council designates somebody that staff can run this by, but I think that we should just leave that to staff to figure out.
Yeah. Do you need any more guidance from all of us, or you
The
think we're
fixed
good?
cost answered my biggest question. I think throughout the rest of our discussion, I have what we need.
Okay.
Can we also, sorry, can we run like a quick survey out to the community that says, if this became available, would you be taking advantage of it? Or some way before we meet on Thursday to have a number in mind of how many businesses we might be talking about?
I think from the Mentimeter survey that we took yesterday, it was pretty clear to me that we will get a 100% response rate.
But a 100% of what number, I guess, is just like, what's the total business
I
count?
mean, I can just tell you how we're modeling out it. We have our active business licenses, and so we can kind of take an estimate of the potential maximum number of businesses that could apply for it. So we've modeled it out on that perspective, and yeah, I think the need is there, and to everyone's point, I think all of this is we are not going to be able to fill the gap that this is contributing to. And so we are doing our best faith effort to come up with a program to help with a short-term assistance. And we have limited funds to be able to do that. And we are working within the resources that we have available. And so I appreciate the way this conversation is going, but I think to that end, the number will never be enough, and no matter what we calculate as who might be participating, I think whatever number we put out there is going to still be used. So.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say before we move on to the next agenda? Mari?
Yeah, I was just thinking that given that what Zoe's just saying, that there really isn't that much money, maybe what we do is something just really flexible and, give businesses what might feel like a paltry amount of money, but relating to their total revenues, and not restricted, like just right there.
I don't think we're going to restrict how they spend it. I think we just need to figure out the metric. I don't think we're saying we're going to restrict how they spend the money. I think it's more of like we need to have a metric to figure out how much we're going to get.
Yeah. And it will be a pool of funds, so I think an application is still important. We definitely can't afford a blanketed amount of money for every business in Telluride, or Mountain Village, excuse me.
Any other comments?
I think the only other, Paul, you had mentioned at one point the talk of like waiving fees, and I'm not particularly in favor of doing that. I think we certainly could postpone any fees that are needed to be paid, but I do think that we cannot waive them because those fees are generally directly attached to the things that will actually benefit the businesses as we ramp back into the season or the year. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Anything you want to close with? Or?
No, thank you for the input.
So can we invite representatives from the union and Telsky up?
I think they each want to give a statement, but I think that they don't feel like they're in a position to, be at the table together and be in a position to negotiate because they can't do that.
Well, we're not asking them to negotiate. I just thought it would be better to have them up at the same time and more time efficient. Are you guys willing to do that or not?
No.
No?
I don't think
All right.
they are.
Excuse me?
Oh, I have a short statement.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much to be said from either of us right now.
Well, you should come to the microphone. And I think we have questions, so.
No. Scott, can we have them now go to the podium?
To the podium.
Yeah, the microphone does not seem to be projecting.
That one? This one?
That one.
Got it. Microchip. You use that. You're good.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I just want to start by saying this patrol has an average of tenure of 15 years, which means that everyone on this patrol knows how this is affecting the community. We all have family and friends who are directly affected by this labor dispute. And we have been speaking with them all directly. I think what's challenging to see from the town and within our group is what people are weighing this against is actually their safety and their lives at this job. At risk of sounding too dramatic, that is what people are weighing in their minds when they're thinking about this. So while it may feel like life or death to a lot of people in this town who are experiencing extreme economic hardship because of that, because of this labor dispute, this small group of people it is not actually life or death. And for the small group of people, it does feel like it is. That being said, the update I have for everyone is that Telsky did present us with an offer later in the evening last night, which is fine. They were just working on it for a couple days. And we will be voting on it tomorrow. As a representative from the union, I can't speak to how people are going to vote. I don't know how they're going to vote. It'd be like one of you trying to guess how your constituents would vote. I think it's going to be a really hard decision for people to make, as we haven't seen movement from the company until the last 3 days, so there hasn't been a lot of time to think about this. And in that timeline, I know it feels like this has been going on for a really long time because it's been extremely uncertain and stressful for people. But as far as the union is concerned, they haven't seen any change in the company's position until 3 days ago. So it's a lot to think about. I think people will be weighing that this contract offered was a short-term solution. It doesn't address a lot of our structural concerns for attraction and retention. But that being said, the company did hear us and come across financially. That is a hard thing that we're asking our membership to weigh personally on balancing the short-term benefits of this and the current economic disruption that's going on versus being in a similar position again in a relatively short amount of time. I think that's what we're all struggling with. That is all I have for you. And I know a lot of people are feeling very uncertain and fearful right now. And I wish I had more certainty for you at this very moment. I just won't until tomorrow.
Thank you. Are you prepared to answer questions from the group here?
Yeah, I can answer some questions.
Anybody want to go first?
Oh yeah, my name's Jackie. I'm the secretary for the union.
Thank you. Questions for Jackie? Anybody? I have a few, but I just wanted to give everybody else a chance. Jackie, Telsky issued a statement today that included a link that had pay for every single, I believe it was every single employee. Mm-hmm. And it also had a comparison between the pay that each employee is receiving now, or each employee class is receiving now, the amount that Telsky has offered in their most recent offer, and then a comparison with 4 or 5 other resorts. Do you have any, first of all, is that accurate? And is it in any way that you would say misleading, i.e. they left out important resorts that you compare yourself with or anything like that? Or should we use that information that was published as a fair statement of the situation?
Yeah, I would say for the most recent offer, I think it's only misleading in the fact that in that table of comparisons for special teams, what's left out of there is what a lot of other groups are compensated for that we're not compensated for, that we consider to be, quote, baked into our base wages. The challenging thing that we've had at the table all summer, we've been at the table for 200 hours trying to work this out, is before all of this, is that that every contract is a little bit different. And so there's different factors that contribute to everyone's all-in wages. And so I think the most accurate comps are all-in wages, but obviously you can't publish wages from another ski patrol. And I just want to take this opportunity to say too, I think I'm not trying to air all my grievances here, but what's been challenging for this group too is it's in our efforts to have transparency about what's going on, it's really kind of acted as an invitation for everyone to weigh in on what we're worth to this community. And I think that's hard for people who've lived here for a really long time.
I have one other question, which is that this town, I know, and others have offered to the union to make a contribution at the signing of the contract that would make up the economic gap between Telski and the union. And the union has rejected that offer. And given that I know that there's a lot of things that the union wants in terms of structure and things like that, but given the tremendous hardship that you have just heard, and one of your union members referred to it as an inconvenience, and I thought that was unbelievably insensitive, because when we heard a business owner who's just lost his business that he's invested his life savings, it's a lot more than an inconvenience. That's economic life or death. But when you think of that, I'm just curious why you would reject that offer of money to make the union whole when we offered a path to helping solve this.
I think if anybody looks at the history of corruption in unions, they might understand why third-party payments aren't appropriate to accept. I understand there's a lot of goodwill behind that, but our position is that that opens a door to a very slippery slope. And I would double down and say it is economic, it is financial life or death, but it's not literal life or death. I think we will go back to that. And I know people feel that way, and I see you scoffing at that, but that's actually the reality.
$2 an hour is life and death.
It is, when we've been facing retention issues for the last 10 years. We've had to keep our Upper Mountain terrain closed in the last 3 years, which is an alarm bell that everybody at the company should have seen.
And I know you looked at me at that. My only reaction to that is, we talk about economic hardships. The mental hardship that creates can in fact be life or death at times, and people are entering there. So I don't want to forget about that severity along with the economic crisis and the human aspect to it. So I didn't mean to have that reaction, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in this room have forgot that the patrol is also human.
No, yeah,
so
I'm not
I just want to
either.
put that out there. Yeah, and over $2 an hour in this industry, when wages are already very low, that does make a big difference. I think we've heard a lot of people tell us that they personally have lost tens of thousands of dollars over Christmas week. We make $1,000 over the Christmas week, so $2 an hour is a big difference. And we can't accept third-party funds. I think this has been so challenging, because I understand people want to make this go away, and people are blaming us for refusing to accept those funds and try and maintain a clean operation in our union. But it's the company that's refusing to pay that amount. And all the vitriol that's been directed at us is honestly remarkable to me. So
I have a question. Would you say, from the start of the negotiation period with the ski company and the initial requests, would you say that currently you're being met at 50% of the initial requests, 70%, 80%? Where are you from the initial request to this offer that's in front?
We're being met at 40%.
At 40% of the initial requests? Total or top line wages?
Can you clarify that question?
Meaning extrapolating the request for health benefits, for example. So just from a top line wages, hourly wage, what percentage are you at?
Probably about 50%.
50.
Yeah. from our initial ask. Yeah. Again, there's been a narrative that the patrol is entrenched in our position, and that's not accurate.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Steve? Do you want to come over here because the mic is better?
Steve Swenson with the TSG. First of all, thank you for organizing the meeting and thanks for the attendance. The ski company does understand in the gravity of the situation. The negotiations are ongoing. As was just noted, there's an offer on the table right now that the Union Patrol is considering. We anticipate a vote, as was just noted, tomorrow, and that we think that it's a solid offer. There's been a lot of negotiations, and this is not it's a complicated process because there's a lot of components within the negotiations that don't make it as simple as here's $1 amount and here's another dollar amount. The gap, which has been defined or put out there by many people, we think we've met the criteria of the amount of money that is needed to have a successful offer. Again, part of the process that we're going through is that there's different formats of how the monies are delivered. And that's where it becomes complicated. So it's not just a simple, it's a timing function. This is a potential 3-year agreement. And the way monies are paid out, and both in the different categories and the different components, but also in the different years of the 3-year agreement, it becomes complicated. And it's, I'll answer whatever questions you have in a way that I think I can, honestly, but it would be really simple if there was one wage for trainees, one wage for basics, one wage for advanced, one wage for specialists and station leads. But there's a lot of different components within it, and because of that, it becomes complicated. So whatever questions you have, I'll do the best I can to answer.
Anybody have questions?
I have one. Thank you, Mr. Swenson. Thank you for being here. My question is, I have to believe that the ski company itself has already lost more revenue than was initially at difference between the two parties. How much of that continues to be a factor in these negotiations? The loss of revenue specifically to the ski company.
Again, the number that's been communicated in the process of this negotiation and referred to as the gap or the difference is one number. As we're negotiating, again, we're taking into consideration the viability, just taking into consideration how we have 1,300 employees altogether and how everything kind of relates. We understand and appreciate the safety concern that our ski patrol folks do on a daily basis. And there's no doubt that the structure of the staff is trained and well educated and good people. The safety concern, though, as you look at it, it comes across in all our departments. Every time someone gets on a lift, our lift maintenance team is challenged as far as safety. Every time we load a lift, our lift operators are involved with safety. And again, the understanding and again, sorry, Dan, but to answer your question is that the wage structure that we are working with has to make sense for all our employees across the company, because every aspect of our team is valuable and every aspect of our team are out there doing the best they can. And safety does cross across all the departments, whether it's our groomers, our snowmakers that work at night. It's a complicated situation. It's, again, it'd be real easy to say, again, if we were talking just one rate, one hourly rate for one person, but that's the difficulty in this negotiation. And we've had numerous discussions over the last 7 months. And again, we're hoping that the offer on the table for tomorrow's vote with the Union Patrol is a solid offer, and we're hoping for a resolution, and we're hoping to open the mountain just like everybody else is.
Other questions, Mario?
Oh, yeah. Mine is Marika. Oh, sorry.
Mario, then Harvey.
Okay.
Can you speak to the retention issue that Ski Patrol has spoken of?
There's the average patroller on the mountain in the group. I think there's it's somewhere between 75 and 80 patrollers. The average age group, age tenure for a patroller is 14 years. That's the average. And again, there's some that are trainees that are 1 year, and then we have some that are 53 years. So there's a pretty big range of tenure there. The classifications that the patrollers have, again, they go through trainee, they go through basic, they go through advanced and specialists, and now we've created a new classification, station lead. And it is important for our patrollers to be trained, and it does make sense to have a longevity of a tenure for patrollers. But just like our Sacco, who's in his 53rd year, he doesn't have a lot of years left on patrol. He has a lot of years of having fun, probably, but not on patrol. And part of the goal is to understand and bring in new trainees so that we can build and keep the team solid ongoing. So, it's a combination of working the whole unit, not just one segment of the unit.
Maybe median age is a better metric than average, given some of the really long times.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Maybe it's better to use median age instead of average, because
Median tenure?
yeah.
I don't have that number. I'm sorry.
11. You heard it's the median tenure is 11 years. Harvey, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to pivot. So if anyone else has questions relative to the labor negotiations, do those first. But I was going to pivot a little bit.
I've got a question. I know that, there's a lot of rumors and stuff around Telluride, and I think that it's been brought up that, Telsky has been offered the difference in these funds, and wondering why you guys didn't accept that to possibly move this needle forward so that we could wrap this up.
Again, the nature of this negotiation and the wages, this is I believe the 10th year of having a union and negotiations with the union, and over the course of the contracts are 3-year contracts, and as you kind of move through the negotiations, each time we get back to the negotiations, there's a starting point in the baseline, and there's also baselines for other competitive patrols, and it's something we need to figure out for ourselves with all the different employees that we have. so that we have a somewhat standard structure for wages and compensation. We've tried to, the last offer here, we've brought in some different components that are consistent with other departments that we have that the patrol hasn't had in the past. And we hope that component will be enticing for them to vote to accept it, so we can all get back to getting on the mountain and open the mountain.
Well, Ashley basically asked the same question that I asked of the union rep, which is that the town's individuals have been willing to put up the money to bridge the difference. And I think it's very disheartening that that money has been rejected, based on some principles. And while principles can be important, our towns are dying. And people are losing their jobs, people are losing their businesses, people are losing their livelihoods. And what we heard is, if this goes on much longer, the whole season is lost with catastrophic consequences. So I just want to express, my disappointment that offer of help was turned down by both sides.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Harvey?
Just pivoting briefly, the rest of the meeting was about, things that we should be focused on and, short-term and longer-term. So I don't know if you were at the whole meeting, but a large focus was about, talking about how we need to ramp up marketing, how we need to really, when the mountain reopens, how we really need to get the visitors back and quickly. Do you have any comments on TSG's willingness to partner with the towns, providing funds for that marketing and really trying to get the ball rolling again?
I think we'll sit down and discuss that aspect once we get through the negotiations.
I had another question. Harvey, was that your only question?
Yes.
I've heard from several people that the ski company has communicated that they will be paid through January 11th, and then it's uncertain whether there will be a future paycheck. Is that, you want to shed any light on that so that the whole community knows what the policy is?
There was a short-term communication about trying to bridge the gap as far as the time gap. Again, our main focus is trying to get a resolution so that we can open the mountain up and keep all our employees active and working and employed. At some point, just like all the other businesses here, that there will be a point where there's going to be more difficult decisions to be made, and to see what is actually viable for the company and for the rest of the season. And again, we hope that the offer on the table tonight or tomorrow for the Union Patrol is satisfactory, so we can get going.
Thank you. I had a question from a couple community members about the nature of the workers on Chair 1, the operations now. Are the ski patrollers strike breakers, or are they supervisors? Because I've heard from some community members, they don't want to ski if they're breaking the strike, but if it's supervisors, who are operating with the blessing of the union, then they don't feel then they feel like they can ski a little. So I'm just wondering if you could characterize the status of the people who are patrolling that little part of the mountain.
First of all, we no longer have supervisors within the patrol. That classification was moved on, and now that we have station leaders that are actually have voted to be part of the union. The people that we have on the mountain today, we have some management folks that are helping within their realm of doing some work on the mountain as far as snow safety. We have hired people that have met the medical criteria, and we have staffed up outside of the management team to have people helping us to keep Lift 1 open today. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Steve? We really appreciate your coming and taking our questions.
No problem. Thank you.
Does anybody here have any closing comments about what we just heard?
And I would like to just make a quick comment. We've all talked about the importance of the time frame here, and I'm hopeful, and I really hope that this offer is accepted tomorrow. And if it's not, I just encourage rapid fire negotiations. We don't need to wait multiple days for a counter. Time is essential, and I hope it's accepted. If it's not, I hope a counter is made the same day, and we just keep at this until it's done. Thank you.
Scott, can I just say something else?
Yes, sure.
I just wanted to say that, I've been in this community for about 25 years, and what I'm hearing from, and we've heard from all of our community members, but what I also hear is a lot of fear and concern amongst Telski employees that they might not have jobs, like there's going to be unilateral layoffs. That kind of fear within an organization is a death knell. It means that your staff may be looking for other jobs as we speak. And it means that it creates a heightened level of insecurity that already every business owner and person that lives here feels. So I just wanted to provide that comment in sort of a safe space with all of the community, so it's not just coming from one or two people within your ranks. And I ultimately hope that the philosophy of our whole region, inclusive of Telski, could recognize that we see this as a community mountain because we ski it all the time. Our kids are here. People want to be here for a long period of time, if that wasn't otherwise understood by every comment that's been made tonight. And also, there's an aspiration to draw people from around the world. Clearly, there's been huge marketing campaigns to that effect. So I think both of those things, I hope, can live in the same universe so that we can actually have a community mountain and that it's safe ultimately and that people can live here and not have to move away, which is we're hearing and seeing that stated every day, and it makes me sad. Thanks.
And I'll just say I keep thinking about the famous comment by the major in the Vietnam War after a very long battle where they wiped out an entire Vietnamese village, and his comment was, "We had to destroy the village to save it." And I think each side feels like their principled actions are saving this town. But I would say that by failing to reach an agreement, you're destroying it. Anybody else?
Yeah, so we have one more item. Pursuant to our conversation about the Good Neighbor Fund, the town of Mountain Village wants to take this opportunity to adopt a resolution allocating funds to that program. The resolution is currently drafted, and the memo contemplates an amount of $50,000, which was an amount that had initially been discussed, but I have heard other amounts thrown about in the last day or so. And so if people want to make a modification of that, in light of thoughts that you have had or discussion that you've had, comments you've heard tonight, we can pivot in that way.
Anybody want to start? Pete?
Yeah, I guess I would start at 300,000.
Anybody have a reaction to that?
I don't think we have to go that high. Because, we heard earlier that we get to $1 million, and then we see where we are from that.
Oh, I think that's.
I was going to say, we have opportunity to add more to it. So, I think we have to see how this is intended to be a short-term solution to this problem. And as Jason pointed out, there may be need in the future, and we can always appropriate more money at subsequent council meetings.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm starting to drag here. So Elizabeth reminded me that within this whole system, if a resident from Mountain Village goes to the foundation and makes an application for funds and they deem the application complete and give an amount for rent, they will let Mountain Village know that amount. And assuming they live in VCA or another town-owned property, we will simply reduce the rent by the amount dictated to us by the foundation. So it's not an actual cash outlay by the foundation in that case. And so that's between, I don't know, 150 and 200,000 right there that we're just going to absorb.
So you're saying that that rent component would be 150 to 200,000 plus whatever cash we appropriate.
Yeah.
So Pete, does that information lead you to change the amount you're suggesting?
Well, yeah, if we're gonna lower our rent by 200,000, then.
But I just want to be really clear for everybody who's listening. We're not actually lowering our rent across the board. If somebody applies to the program, it is going to be individually deducted as assistance.
I think
So I was thinking cash outflow of 300,000.
So maybe 100?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that amount?
Yes.
Tucker?
Okay.
And that's where my headspace was.
Okay. Can I hear a motion?
Motion to approve resolution appropriating additional sums of money to the 2026 budget in support of the Telluride Good Neighbor Fund in the amount of 100,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Everybody in the audience, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the ski patrollers and to Telski for being willing to come here.
Move to adjourn.
And move to adjourn.
Second.
Telluride agrees.
All right. Thank you. And thanks to the town of Telluride.
Given the opportunity to talk about the program.
Hi, babe.